ESPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. Yeah, that's right, my friends. It's time for another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Hope you guys are having a lovely day. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a lot to discuss. Yesterday, late in the show, we learned that President Trump was planning a Thursday night Oval Office address to the nation, most likely on the subject of election security and, of course, the stolen election of 2020. Well, it didn't take long before MS Now and many other left-wing places started reporting on the supposed leaked speech that President Trump was going to be giving. I've seen a lot of movements coming from the administration which seem to be canary traps, and I have to say, I think that this is yet another of them. We've had some statements from President Trump. We've also got others coming from different people within the administration. Undoubtedly, President Trump is going to talk about elections, but I don't think anybody really knows how deep it's going to go. So if you haven't yet, do me a favor, hit that like button. You can also help us out by sharing the show. And of course, if you wouldn't mind, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're going to be right back after this.
Science proves that a healthy immune system is the body's first defense against the smallest of ailments to the most catastrophic. Coriolus Versicolor is the most sought-after, all-natural supplement for both humans and pets to help boost the immune system. There are over 400 studies worldwide on its effectiveness in humans, including Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and now from the University of Pennsylvania School of Veterinary Medicine. Together, we can help reverse this terrible tide now plaguing your loved ones and give them the immune-boosting supplements that they need.
3 boys taught me 2 things. Summer is an adventure and bugs are relentless. As an herbalist, I know you don't need harsh chemicals to protect your family. Here at Tamarack Garden, we've got you covered with natural sunscreen, mosquito and tick repellent that's even safe for your pets, a salve to draw out bug bites, and soothing sunburn cream, all made with the power of plants. Because we think summer memories should last longer than the bug bites. Tamarack Garden, protect your family naturally and eat your weeds.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. We do have a lot to discuss today, so we are going to get right into it. First of all, I would like to give you guys a moment to just sort of have a palate cleanser for the day. Before we really get into the heavy news, I would like to show you a little bit of video of Chuck Schumer speaking on the floor of the Senate, an impassioned speech that he's giving about something that nobody will remember. Why? Because during the course of that speech, Chuck Schumer blew ass. That's right. He farted, and it was picked up on the microphone.
And we need a complete investigation that's independent. Now on Iran and the NDAA, when all the Trump administration...
And he almost started laughing. He almost started laughing because he knows that the microphone picked it up. Come on. Why does this keep happening? It was working just fine all day. The brightness was perfect, and then as soon as I go live, it starts getting dark on me. Let me pull down the desk here a little bit and maybe get a little bit less of the sign. Okay, we're just going to hear it one more time.
And we need a complete investigation that's independent. Now on Iran and the NDAA, When all the Trump administration, and we
when all the Trump administration, he just starts to laugh at himself because he knows that that's going to live down in infamy. So again, I don't know what Chuck Schumer was blabbering about, and I don't think anybody else knows because the only thing they're ever going to remember is that he farted on the floor of the Senate. And everybody has seen it. Everybody is sharing this video. It's freaking hilarious. You didn't hear it? Okay, honey, we're going to listen to it one more time. Right there near the end, I'm going to turn up the volume even more, okay? We're going to go full blast on this. So pardon me for everybody. Check your ears.
And we need a complete investigation that's independent. Now, on Iran and the NDAA, when all the...
Let's here one more time, Lisa.
When all the Trump administration, and we need AAA. When all...
How could you not hear that? Turn your volume up full blast.
DAA. When all...
Ah, Chucky. Oh, Chucky. Oh, man. Also, wonderful news from Scott Bessent. We knew that the Treasury was going to start producing every dollar in all denominations with the signature of President Donald J. Trump. Well, we also learned from Scott Bessent today that not only are we going to have President Trump's signature on the dollar, but we are also going to have a President Trump 250th commemorative coin, which will be introduced into circulation. Let's go ahead and take a look and have a listen.
Donald Trump's signature will be on a $100 bill.
Well, it's going to be on all the currency for the 250th.
Everything.
Yes. So that as Treasury Secretary, I only have two mandates. The currency has to say "In God We Trust" somewhere on it, and there cannot be a image of a living person, but we have the president's signature, which again, I think it is appropriate for the 250th. During the 150th, there was a Calvin Coolidge coin, so we can put living people's images on a coin. The president's also going to have a coin coming out with his image on it. We could put your image on it.
Let's not get carried away.
Well, people might hoard. People might hoard it. So
my family, and that's it. Can I see the president's signature?
Yeah. So here's the sheets of hundreds, hot off the press.
Yes, please. let me just get one of those from you, Scott.
Watch out! Don't smudge it. don't smudge it. So what'll happen? They're printed here in D.C. or Dallas. Then they go to the Federal Reserve, and the serial numbers are all registered at the Fed, and then the Fed starts sending them out into the banking system. So this fall, that these with the president's signature will be available.
When liberals see the signature, are they going to light it on fire?
Well, yeah, that's good for the U.S. government when they do it. So, their hair's on fire, so they should keep the currency away from their hair.
Donald Trump.
All right, so when the dollars come out, I'm obviously going to get one of every denomination within reason, and then I'm also going to get myself a roll of those 50-cent pieces. Those were, in case anybody was confused, those are Donald Trump commemorative 50-cent pieces, I believe. So maybe they're dollars. Maybe they might be dollars. I don't know, but on the back they look like Kennedy half dollars. So, yeah, pretty cool. All right. Now, let us move on to the next story. We have an update on that tragic tale of the left-wing anti-ICE activist who was living in Ireland, married to a Muslim terrorist. She was tragically beaten to death, and the man fled to Jordan. Well, he has now been arrested. Tragically, we've also learned that not only was Jamie Carney sleeping with the enemy, but apparently the enemy never really liked her. He didn't get with her because he thought that a Western woman would make a good mate. It looks like he was in some sort of a long-term confidence scam with her, and not long before he beat her to death, he essentially drained her bank accounts. That is coming from her mother. Now, this man was from Jordan, and he was in Ireland seeking asylum. But, of course, as soon as he killed an American citizen, beat her to death brutally, he immediately ran back to the country that he claimed he needed asylum from. So once he got there, the Jordanian authorities arrested him after an international manhunt. His name was Ahmed al-Sakar. And allegedly, only allegedly, because he has not been brought to trial yet, he fled Ireland, and then Carney's body was discovered tragically by her teenage daughter at their home in Killarney, County Kerry, last week. Now, Irish authorities identified al-Sakar as the primary suspect, of course, because they saw that he had fled the country. He traveled through Turkey and then ultimately wound up in Jordan. Now, Carney was a woman from New York. She had been living in Ireland for the last several years. Reports seem to indicate that she and al-Sakar had participated in an Islamic marriage ceremony before her death. Of course, he was probably thinking, now that we're married, it's totally legal for me to beat her to death, right? Because, yay, Islam. And according to her Facebook and TikTok pages, as well as plenty of local reports, she was known locally as a community member involved in pro-Palestine activities. Now, Carney also crudely bashes ICE in many of her videos. Those videos are still available online. She also does a fair amount of virtue signaling and humble bragging, talking about the fact that she married an Arab. Now, according to the Irish Independent, al-Sakar had told acquaintances he actually hoped to relocate to the United States and that Carney had been helping him pursue U.S. residency. Thank God he beat her to death before that could happen. So the Irish police described him only initially as a person of interest, and then he was detained by Jordan's Public Security Directorate for approximately 48 hours after authorities learned that he was back after, of course, claiming he needed asylum. And then they handed him over to the Garda, and Irish authorities were happy to arrest him yesterday. The Irish police have confirmed to Fox News Digital that they were aware of the arrest of a male in Jordan by Jordanian authorities, but of course, because it's the UK, they would not confirm the identity of the man that they believed beat this American woman to death. Now, police also confirmed that they have not made any request to the Jordanian authorities for the arrest of any person at this time, so I don't know who it is that actually requested his arrest. Maybe the Jordanians just did it and then said, we don't want this piece of shit in our country. We're going to send him back to you over there in Ireland. Now, Carney's case has triggered initially the Interpol request, so it could have also been Interpol that actually did it. Once you put it into the hands of international authorities, it's kind of outside of your purview. Now, the whole case is actually being monitored by the U.S. National Central Bureau. That is the American arm of Interpol, and it's staffed by members of the Justice Department and Homeland Security. And, of course, the FBI has also offered their assistance. No word on whether or not Carney and her daughter, well, Carney's body and her daughter are going to be coming back to the United States, or if her mother is going to move to Ireland. No idea, but the sad, tragic tale is essentially coming to an end. Now, I actually would normally put most international news at the end of the show, but this was such an inspiring and unbelievable turn of events. Also coming out of the UK, a tiny little village in a place called Piddington has just voted for independence from the United Kingdom, from the British monarchy, because the government is apparently planning to dump somewhere around 1,000 illegal aliens in their tiny little village. Just to give you an idea of how fundamentally life in Piddington would change, only 180 people live there currently. So at a margin of, roughly 2 to 1, you would have these 1,000 illegal aliens that would be dumped into their community. And then, of course, Piddington is basically going to become an open toilet and a open-air sex trafficking market because, of course, these illegals they love trafficking little girls from the UK. Let's go ahead and take a listen. Hopefully, this has some effect on the rest of the United Kingdom. Maybe we'll see other locations that are suffering similar circumstances decide that they both also no longer want to be part of this madness.
Welcome back. So, a village in Oxfordshire has voted for independence from the UK over plans to house asylum seekers in the area. So, residents of Piddington in Oxfordshire, which has an adult population of just 180 people, apparently, were left outraged after it was revealed that at least 1,250 male adult illegal migrants will be accommodated in a nearby military storage depot, which backs onto a children's playground. And now, in a revolutionary act of protest over the migrant camp, 96...
And I am sorry for the low quality of this clip. This was the only way that I found it. It's obviously somebody who's recording their television with their phone.
percent of locals voted for independence from the rest of Britain so that they don't have to put up with this nonsense. I'm joined now by Pennington resident Ian Darby. Ian, thank you very much. I'm very sorry that this is happening in your area. I really am. How do you feel about it?
Well, as you can imagine, the village is taken aback. No consultation at all on this process. So literally we found out 3 weeks ago what is news that is fundamental to, as you said, the 350 people that live in the village. So we have been, as you highlighted in your introduction, we've worked hard on what we could do to raise the profile of what's happening, to start trying to ask questions of the government, bring the village together, which was very much what the independent referendum idea was about, and to attract people who can help with money and with legal and planning skills to help us see what we can do about it.
I'm also always baffled in these situations. You know, what about your human rights? What about the human rights of the people in your area not to have to live with potentially 1,200 illegal migrants, and very often in cases like we've seen with Crowborough, for example, which is also getting expanded, I'm actually doing a live show from on Thursday, they're free range, aren't they? You know, this will fundamentally affect your way of life.
You're spot.
You know what? I'm just, here's a little bit of an idea. The British authorities or the locals, especially the Irish, because I don't know that you're going to be able to get any guns of any real power anywhere else outside of Ireland. But they could just have people standing there on the beach waiting with MP5s and stopping these guys from being able to jump off their boats. That's what I'd do.
And I think that's what's got us so upset that no one's come to talk to the village about it. You're right, we're 300 odd people, 1,250 men only. Why men only? I mean, you can ask you can have your own thoughts on that. But I mean, this is an open access in, access out site, as we understand it. So this is right on the edge of this village, right on the edge of the playing fields, the playing grounds, as you said. These guys are going to have the ability to wander around the village. We've got no shops, we've got no pubs, we don't have any police. We have no way of providing any protection for our residents. So this isn't about us being, this is not an asylum seeker issue as far as we're concerned. It's the practical realities of what we can do to protect our residents, the older people, the kids in our village, to be okay with all of this. And at the moment, we're not getting the answers, which is why we're campaigning as we are.
No, well, good for you, actually. And, anything we can do here to highlight it, we were more than happy to do so. And I think you made a good point there, which is if it's only men, why are potentially, anyway, female or child asylum seekers deemed not to be safe in this particular barracks with all these blokes, but yet the women and the children of your particular village will have it thrust upon them. We've got very quickly, we've got a few seconds. Go on.
Yeah, well, and also the barracks close to Piddington are being offered additional security. These are military, people, soldiers being offered additional security. Piddington isn't. I mean, just madness. Don't mind me saying so.
It says it all. No, I don't mind you saying so. Ian, thank you very much.
So as far as I know, the British government has not responded to the residents of Piddington. I don't exactly know how they're going to respond to this. I don't know if any part of the British mainland, besides like Northern Ireland in any like modern times, has ever attempted to secede from Ireland, or excuse me, from the United Kingdom. Obviously, you've had votes and referendums, and they haven't really gone anywhere. But it seems that all 180 residents of this tiny community have said, we do not want to be part of the UK anymore. So I look forward to seeing exactly how this one is going to play out. Now, after a number of recent deaths from ICE officials attempting to arrest illegal aliens as they were attempting to drive away, and then they use their vehicles as a weapon, there appears to be a new directive coming down from the Department of Homeland Security, and ICE agents have been ordered to immediately end traffic stops nationwide, at least until the agents that will be doing the traffic stops can enter into some additional type of training. A lot of people are saying that this is a capitulation to the radical left and to the fake news media. But for the time being, ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials have been directed to just stop pulling over illegal aliens. Now, this was initially reported from multiple sources within the Department of Homeland Security. And this is most likely going to heavily impact ICE's ability to arrest illegal aliens without a judicial warrant when these people are outside of their homes. Or at least that's the narrative that people are trying to spin. One agency source decried the decision, referencing the decreasing deportation figures by saying numbers are going down and we can't do shit. That is a direct quote. Now, the two fatal shootings that I mentioned were in Maine and Texas. On Monday, you had 26-year-old Joan Sebastian Guerrero of Colombia. He's the guy who attempted to run over ICE agents during that targeted enforcement operation on Monday morning. He was, of course, fatally shot. Easy lesson for everybody else. Don't use your vehicle as a battering ram to try to run over federal agents, and you won't end up losing your life. And then, of course, you had the incident in Texas we talked about last week. Lorenzo Salgado Araju, who was fatally shot after also ramming an ICE vehicle, ignoring commands, and trying to run over an agent. Now, a witness in the Maine shooting confirmed on Monday that the vehicle was put into drive and was attempting to drive over the ICE officer. There have been, of course, firsthand witness accounts allegedly coming from leftists who were there witnessing. There was a woman who owned a shop across the street and who had a security camera, and she said that it was essentially a murder, and she ended up putting out the video from her security feed, and the video itself was, of course, damning for the illegal alien. It showed exactly what the witnesses who reported accurately were saying had happened. So this policy is likely going to have a significant impact on the number of people who are going to be arrested and deported, because many of these arrests are coming during the course of people being pulled over and then being hauled in. Now, there are, of course, other ways that this can be done. They could essentially maybe put more people out on the road to block these people off. They could have the spike strips. They could disable the cars and force people out that way. They could, of course, just wait until these people get to where they're going and then wait for them to exit their vehicles. Now, Tom Homan, of course, is pushing back on the idea that this is going to be some sort of an impediment to ICE officials being able to arrest and deport people, and he wants everybody to know that this is merely a temporary pause. He says, I'm hearing a lot of noise on this right now. This is going to affect ICE arrests. He says it's not going to. Well, Tom Homan is the border czar, so I figure we'll give him the opportunity to say his piece.
And why are you doing it?
Well, that decision was made by the Secretary along with leadership at ICE. But look, it's not a policy change. It's a temporary pause. Look, we had the last couple of shootings, ICE leadership along with DHS believes they want to look at these last couple of incidents and look, is there something that could have been done better? Is there any training that can be improved? Or it's simply ICE doing their job and bad things happen when people don't comply with law enforcement officers. So I think it's going to be a short pause. And I'm confident that ICE is well trained in vehicle stops, and you're going to see us keep moving forward. But this is just a temporary pause where they look at the incidents. But let me say this too: I hear a lot of noise right now. This is going to affect ICE arrests, and it's not going to. Look, I've done this for a long time. You can when that alien leaves his home before he gets into the car, you can arrest him then.
There you go.
You can wait till the vehicle gets to the destination and arrest him then. Arrest it then. Every case is different. Now, we know vehicle assaults are up over 3,400%. So if we can arrest that alien outside that vehicle and take that 2-ton weapon away from them, That's good in some instances. Other instances, we're going to still need to do vehicle stops or a significant criminal. You may want to stop him in a desolate area before he gets downtown. You certainly don't want to stop a criminal alien near a school.
Yeah, so like I said, they can arrest them before they get in the car. They can arrest them when they get out of the car. If they know who these people are, undoubtedly they are not going to just sit back and allow them to continue running all over town. Now, I saw somebody mention in the YouTube chat, nobody cares about the U.S. and Israeli militaries merging. I think we all actually do care. I've already spoken about it on the program before. It hasn't happened yet, so there's nothing really new additional to talk about. People continue to characterize it as a full merging of our militaries, and that's not exactly what's happening. It's not what's happening, and I know because I've actually read the legislation. It is it is a merging of sorts. I will definitely give you that, and I'm not happy about it. It is more about the entanglement of our intelligence and technological information. It's not like we're going to have IDF soldiers here on American soil, and it's not like the Americans are going to be stationed in Israel. Until it actually happens and until we know like how it's actually going to pan out, unfortunately, there's really nothing else that I can say about it because it simply hasn't happened yet. It still may not happen. And honestly, that's what I'm hoping the ultimate outcome is going to be. I don't want the United States military to be entangled with anybody else's. However, it's not all of that unusual when you look at the arrangements the United States has had with different militaries around the world. Certainly, a lot of people were concerned about NATO many, many years ago. You know, the United States sharing information and technology with European nations. Now it's happening there, but at the same time, the United States is opening up and has signed non-proliferation agreements with Middle Eastern nations and also security agreements with Middle Eastern nations. So the nations that Israel is currently being aggressive towards, all of those nations in the Middle East, the United States has signed security pacts with them. So if Israel goes and attacks, say, Qatar or Bahrain or the UAE or something like that, the United States has an agreement with those countries that they would have to attack as well. So it is not as Chicken Little sky falling as some people are suggesting it is, and there are far more pieces on the board than simply Israel. I'll give you my ultimate opinion here. What I believe is happening and what has been happening for quite some time is a dramatic shift in the nature of the relationship between the United States and Israel. And right now, the United States is walling Israel off in the Middle East so that if any aggression happens, it's going to happen by them, because of them. Whereas with the rest of the Middle East, President Trump is bringing everybody closer together and closer to the United States as well. So I'm not necessarily as concerned about it as some people who are characterizing it are. All right. Now, there has been a situation with an Afghan man who is in the midst of detention and deportation proceedings. The mainstream media is suggesting that he is an American war hero. They've almost made it sound as if he actually served in the American military. Now, he claims to have worked with the United States military as a U.S. interpreter in Afghanistan. However, the claim that he has made has not been independently corroborated. There's been no verification that's been given, and he is currently in the midst of expedited removal proceedings. He was previously on parole, and DHS has revoked that parole. So 3 Afghan nationals connected to U.S. military service have all become national news since the middle of 2025. You had Mohammed Nazir Pakhtwal. He died in ICE custody in Dallas. That was basically his own fault. Zia S., who was detained in Connecticut and then later released, and then Syed Nasser Nouri, who was detained in San Diego and then later released by court order. Now, coverage of all 3 of them by the mainstream media has centered on their service records or their military records, and they kind of framed each detention as some type of a betrayal of a wartime ally. But what they forgot with this was the minimization and the omission of details that really complicate the narrative and certainly make it not nearly as cut and dry as they would like it to be. So the cases of Mohammed, Nazir, Pakatwal, and Zia were both covered by the Gateway Pundit on July 9th and July 11th. This is an article about Nouri, who was arrested June 12th at the first asylum hearing he had in San Diego. Nouri arrived in the United States at the San Ysidro port of entry on July 5th, 2024, and he had a CBP-1 appointment without a special immigrant visa. He had no lawful permanent resident status. He had no previously approved refugee status. He didn't have any form of valid entry document, so he was here in the United States illegally. So whatever he did in Afghanistan, even if it is proven, I personally could care less. There are laws that govern your ability to come to the United States, enter, and then stay. Now, after they looked at his background, he didn't have any criminal history, but I think we all know that doesn't mean people are not criminals or can't be dangerous. He also didn't have any documentation from Afghanistan. So a CBP officer paroled him, allowed him to go into the United States pending Section 240 removal proceedings. They gave him humanitarian parole, which is just a temporary status. It does not give anybody the right to stay here. There's no pathway to citizenship with that. Now, in the asylum filings that he ended up submitting, Nouri stated that he has worked as a civilian interpreter for the U.S. military. That was allegedly from 2015 to 2018. And he also said that he and his brothers operated a logistics company where they would provide anti-mining support to U.S. forces. Of course, he doesn't have any documentation to prove that either. But he does claim that Taliban fighters killed his brother, abducted his father at a family wedding back in 2023, which is what drove him from the country. This account is solely drawn from his own asylum filings. Again, there has been no independent verification. There is no corroboration by outside reporting. There are no other witnesses to this wedding or the kidnapping or the murder. And of course, there is also no third-party documentation that we can find from Afghanistan. But the underlying habeas corpus petition that was filed in federal court also further contradicts the original account that he gave to authorities. Because in that habeas filing, he states that the killing and detention actually occurred back in September of 2021, which is obviously a couple of years before 2023. Now, this would have been after the Taliban takeover in August of 2021. And he also, in that original, in that habeas filing, makes no mention of the wedding that he mentioned in a more recent retelling of the tale. So there's obviously a big discrepancy between 2021 date and the court filings and then the 2023 date in his asylum application. There is no reconciliation between those two dates, and apparently he hasn't attempted to explain it. On April 11th of 2025, the DHS revoked his humanitarian parole through an automated notification system. He was not detained at that time, and he continued to comply with his regular ICE check-ins. But on June 12th of 2025, during an immigration court hearing, government counsel moved to dismiss his original notice to appear as improvidently issued without explaining the basis for the determination. So at that time, he was taken into custody by ICE officials right after the hearing ended, and they placed him in expedited removal proceedings under 8 U.S.C. 1225B. 1, which permits deportation processing without any type of standard immigration court bond hearing. So the dismissal of that original notice to appear was an administrative action. There was no criminal charge or conviction that went along with it. So again, he doesn't appear to be a criminal. But the DHS classed him as inadmissible and a non-citizen, making him subject to expedited removal under that specific provision. And they also specifically stated he argued that he was detained under 1225B1B2, which they say does not entitle him to a determination by a court or release of a bond hearing before an immigration judge. So no further due process in that respect. Now, the DHS also publicly stated that Nouri was an unvetted illegal alien from a high-threat country, and there was nothing in his immigration records indicating he had ever assisted the U.S. government. His legal team and an Afghan advocacy group disputed that characterization from DHS. They cited contracting and employment records they say substantiate his claim of having worked with U.S. Special Forces, but those records were reviewed by a local news outlet and never actually authenticated by the court. Now, because he is remaining in mandatory ICE detention, his legal team filed an emergency petition for a writ of habeas corpus, and that was in the Southern District of California. The dispute centered on the timing and the method that DHS used to terminate his parole. His attorneys argue that after living in the United States for more than a year under parole and holding valid work authorization, Nouri had acquired procedural due process protections that barred the U.S. government from summarily detaining him and placing him on expedited removal track without that individualized notice. So in September of 2025, a judge granted that habeas petition in part, ruling on procedural and constitutional grounds rather than on the merits of Nouri's underlying right to remain in the country. And the court did identify two defects with his treatment. So first, the DHS could not lawfully place Nouri in expedited removal on June 12th because his original Section 240 proceedings were still pending and had not been formally dismissed. And then second, DHS's use of a mass automated notification system to revoke his original parole failed to satisfy 8 CFR 212.5E, which requires individualized written notice and an explanation before humanitarian parole can be terminated. So the remedy, the judge ordered his immediate release from the Otay Mesa Detention Center. It restored him to his original parole status, and it actually barred ICE from re-detaining him during the pendency of his removal proceedings without prior approval from the court. Of course, the court order did not grant Nouri permanent residency or citizenship or a permanent right to remain in the United States. It does not guarantee him asylum that will ever be granted to him, and instead, it merely restored his original temporary humanitarian parole. So now he is still here in the United States under that status while his asylum claim and special immigrant visa application continue through the normal administrative process without the assurance of the outcome. Now, I read all of that to you guys so that I could potentially drive home to you just how complicated and broken the process is for the removal of one person in one particular type of situation who 100% came here to the United States illegally. There are so many laws, rules, and regulations that govern the treatment of these people. It is not merely as simple as arresting them and then throwing them on a plane and sending them back to their home country. You have judges, you have paperwork, you have lawyers, you have advocacy groups, you have the, of course, individual who is trying to enter the country illegally. And then you have the all of the people of the United States who are looking on and saying, what the hell is the problem? Why can't we just get rid of them? Well, right there, we're talking about nearly 2 years of judicial maneuverings in the immigration court to finally find out that, well, now we have to let him back out and you have to start all over again. This is why it is so difficult to get these people out of the country and why I think we are not seeing the number of deportations that I think probably every single one of us would like to see. The process is broken, and it is broken intentionally. The layers of bureaucracy, of red tape, of legal wranglings and maneuverings that have been written into the law intentionally to make it obtuse and opaque as it could possibly be, so that these people end up just sticking around and end up slipping through the system if somebody isn't there continuously trying to move the process forward to get them out. It is absolutely enraging, but it is unfortunately the way that our country is operating. Let me say a couple of thank yous to people over here on Pilled and on Rumble. First of all, thank you very much to my good friend Snowcat Operator for granting a subscription to Renee. Congratulations, Renee. Thank you to Lee Walden. Taco Tuesday lettuce. Yeah, stay away from the lettuce. Apparently, nobody is supposed to eat fresh vegetables no matter where they're from. It's funny because Lisa and I were going to make steak salads tonight, and we just got a bunch of stuff to make that salad. It's from Florida. But I don't know. I'm worried that if we're going to eat that lettuce, we might get that explosive diarrhea. And then Principled Enigma said, I think Scott said it was for a 250 coin. Oh, okay. All right. I'll take a look. Principled Enigma, I just looked on Grok. It is $1. Okay, cool. Yeah, 250 would be an odd denomination. Principled Enigma, thank you for that. Freedom 76, good to see you, homie. Any sympathy I had for any illegal is vastly disappearing. I think that you should have zero sympathy for any illegals. Anybody who's here in the United States illegally is under no illusion of their right to be here, although many of them believe that that is exactly what they have. A country is not a country without borders, and there is no rule of law if the laws that we have on the books are not enforced, or if the only laws that are enforced are selective and merely enforced against the natural native-born citizens. All right. Yeah, I have zero sympathy for these people. I just want them to get the hell out of our country. Okay. Now, another person I have zero sympathy for is Dr. Anthony Fauci. Here is, I think, the moment where we may be able to catch him up in a bit of a trap, because I'm sure you all remember Anthony Fauci was granted an auto pen pardon. The legitimacy of that auto pen pardon is still in flux. But before we finally have the ultimate dispensation of the decision regarding that legality for that pardon, I think it's important that we get Anthony Fauci in to have him testify. So Rand Paul has scheduled that testimony. He says for years, Anthony Fauci funded gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab, and then he lied about it. Declassified documents now show he didn't just fund it. He personally shaped what the intelligence community told the American people about the origins of COVID. 18 agencies relied on his guidance, and, of course, with his guidance, they lied and manipulated the American people. They committed a mass psychosis operation, psyops all day. Well, on July 29th at 10 a.m., Dr. Anthony Fauci is scheduled to testify publicly before my committee because the American people deserve the truth once and for all. Now, why is it important for Anthony Fauci to come and testify while he believes to still be in possession of a pardon, regardless of whoever signed it? Because when Anthony Fauci comes in to testify, he is no longer subject to the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. Anthony Fauci must answer truthfully to all of the questions that the committee is going to ask him about the crimes that he committed and about the various things that he did that were improper, especially if they are governed under his belief that he has a pardon. He can't claim Fifth Amendment because theoretically, technically, as long as that pardon stands, he won't be able to incriminate himself. He will be able to say that he did illegal things, but again, theoretically, as long as that pardon stands, he can't be prosecuted for them. So now he's in a real conundrum because either he comes in and he testifies honestly because there's a pardon, or he comes in and he lies and then he puts himself in criminal jeopardy. What I think would be even more delicious is for Anthony Fauci to come in, maybe lie and tell the truth in one respect or another. And then only after he has fully admitted to the crimes that he committed against humanity and the people of the United States, well, then we get Todd Blanche in, fully confirmed as the Attorney General of the United States, and he makes an announcement and says, President Trump is correct. All of Joe Biden's auto pardons are hereby null and void, and we are going to prosecute the people who committed the crimes against the United States of America, of course, one of which would be Anthony Fauci. Principal Enigma says laws are not laws if they are not hard black and white statements that are adhered to the letter. Okay, so let's go ahead and hear from Ron Johnson, because Ron Johnson, along with Senator Rand Paul, two of the warriors we have in the Senate looking for the truth, and they have both been pursuing Dr. Anthony Fauci since the very beginning.
I know you shouldn't be giving up your questions, obviously, but can you give us like a general line of questioning that you are going to engage in? And also, Dr. Fauci could be charged. His pardon wouldn't cover if he lied to Congress again. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah, he better not commit perjury. And so, listen, it'll really be about what he actually knew. It'll depend on what documents I get to see before that. Again, we're still trying to get documents. We don't have all of them. So it'll be depend on what we got. It'll depend on what Senator Paul asks him first, what he says in the statement. So I'll be prepared with a lot of different questions. You only get 5 minutes. Maybe we'll get 7 this round and hopefully multiple rounds. So again, I'm hoping every committee member comes totally prepared to Ask him some very tough questions. He deserves it.
Yeah. We hope you ask about this video of Dr. Fauci. Do you have it loaded, Klein? This video of Dr. Fauci like guaranteeing that there's going to be a surprise pandemic. Wrong one.
Diseases,
guaranteeing that there's going to
infectious disease.
Yeah.
Is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. And
what? Dude, this guy's worked.
So, yes, I would certainly hope that Ron would ask Anthony Fauci about his incredible prediction right there. How is it that Dr. Anthony Fauci could have known? Well, maybe it's because he was not only funding the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the knowing funding of gain-of-function research there, but he also knew that there was a plan to release this highly transmissible, if not deadly, virus into the global population. Anthony will have to answer all of those questions and more. If he lies, well, then he will find himself under criminal prosecution for those lies. But if he tells the truth, and then Todd Blanche comes forward once he becomes the Attorney General, and he says, we are going to effectuate criminal prosecution against the people who received auto pen pardons because they were never signed by a president. The pardons were effectively not from the president. Then Anthony Fauci is going to be in the deepest shit that you can possibly imagine. Principal Enigma, thank you again for that. Shanjo, thank you for the can and the cookie. Hogleg71, thank you for the cookie and the can. Filter Dog says, we learned a hard lesson about NATO in Bosnia while Clinton was in office. Sure did. And Shanjo, thank you for the cookie. Filter Dog also, I believe the GCC will prove to be better ally than NATO. Well, I think that just about anybody would be a better ally than NATO. And I also, in addition to the changing of the relationship that President Trump is making between Israel and the United States, I think that President Trump is also effectively deleting NATO as well. He has shown them to be bad allies, and I think that it's only a matter of time before we end up pulling out of that arrangement as well. Okay, now, President Trump is not the only member of his family who has had to suffer through attacks and threats on his life. Earlier, the DOJ announced the arrest of a man in New York who made these exact same type of death threats against Donald Trump Jr. Now, what's really interesting about it is that he did it on his live stream, and he used his full legal name in his Rumble account name. His name is James Gerald Eckert Jr. What's also interesting is I went and looked at his Rumble channel, and the videos that he posted appear to be live mixes of videos that were featured on Rumble at the time that he was going live. And there was one video that I saw where he was watching BB and Chris on Story Hour, and then he watches the soft disclosure ad. Then he watches the soft disclosure ad where I'm driving the DeLorean, and he appears to be rocking out to it. It was hilarious. We'll check it out in a second. But anyways, James Gerald Eckert Jr., he's 39 years old. He lives in Rochester, New York. He was arrested and charged with making multiple threats to kill, kidnap, or inflict bodily harm against a member of the immediate family of the president. He also appears to have made threats against other politicians as well. U.S. Attorney Michael DiGiacomo announced these charges yesterday, and this is obviously a federal offense that carries a punishment of up to a max of 5 years in prison. Now, according to the criminal complaint, on June 18th, a U.S. Secret Service agent on duty at Donald Trump Jr.'s residence was alerted to these multiple threats that were made in the live chat during President Trump's podcast, which is called Triggered. Now, the threats came from the account using the name James Gerald Eckert Jr., like a real moron. And he wrote in the chat, I'm going to kill you, expletive. I'm going to kill you, expletive, on the screen. And the podcast on his Rumble channel shows him streaming himself to Rumble, literally making these threats as he's watching Donald Trump Jr. He repeats the threats in the chat. He also does it verbally for his audience. The videos, when I looked at them this morning, had a maximum of 3 to 5 views. And he posts repeatedly not only against Donald Trump Jr., but also against Chris, the CEO of Rumble. And he did this for the duration of approximately an 8-minute video. He also said, "You're effing dead. It's over, guys. I'm going to go to YouTube and be calm, and I'm still going to effing kill Trump Jr. We're going to get world peace. Effing die, guy. Try to get out of this surviving. F you forever. F you forever." So on June 7th, prior to the threats made against President Trump, against Donald Trump Jr., he also posted a message to Facebook, which uses his real name, James Gerald Eckert Jr., and he made threats against other politicians. He said, "Mayor Malik Evans, I am coming for your family. Seriously, you will lose them to me personally. Stand by. This will not go away until you are dead or redacted is behind bars. Deal with this." And then on June 11th, on the same Facebook account, again using his full legal name, he made a threat against New York State Senator Samara Brooke. On the senator's official Facebook page, he wrote, "You are going to die." And then he has now made an initial appearance before U.S. Magistrate Judge Mark W. Peterson, and he was held pending a detention hearing, which will be on July 20th. So he was arrested last week by the Rochester Police Department. He was picked up on a charge of felony second-degree aggravated harassment as a hate crime. But of course, instead of keeping him behind bars because it's New York, Judge Jacqueline L. Grippy granted his release with non-monetary conditions, and then he went right back out onto the street. So the U.S. Secret Service reported in court records having contacted Eckert while he was in police custody. Eckert was arraigned Thursday in city court, and the judge let him back out onto the street. So the federal complaint was under seal on Friday. Eckert then was arrested on Saturday, and then he made another appearance in U.S. District Court with U.S. Attorney Michael D. Giacomo. So now he's looking at both state and federal charges for making these threats against numerous politicians. The guy, for all intents and purposes, I think is very, very sick. But let's go to Rumble, and I'll show you his channel. The content is not something that I think any people... shoot. That's not it. It was James Gerald Eckert Jr. Here we go. All right. So, look at this. He has 4 days ago, he streamed for 18 hours. His computer screen is a rainbow flag with Care Bears. So we can only imagine what his politics are. Where's the one with BB and Chris? The one. Yeah, here it is. Look at this. He says World of Warcraft Classic Hardcore, and you can see BB and Chris are the thumbnail. Streamed for about an hour, but the whole thing is just him.
So this is a hip link.
All right.
It's him just like watching multiple Rumble videos at the same time. Now, you can't hear his audio, so I don't know if he was streaming to YouTube at the same time, and maybe his audio is going to YouTube, and he's just playing the weird dual Rumble streams on Rumble. I don't know, dude. The guy is totally unhinged. And at certain points, he's watching Minions. But, here he is watching the soft disclosure ad. Hold on.
Permanent. That means essentially
those fuckboys, those jerks, those bad boys.
I feel like there's
they got
names.
fucked right away. You, the good guy.
Yeah, total weirdo. And the guy's like eating, he's making Lunchables. I don't know, dude. He's probably going to prison. I don't feel bad for him. All right. Somebody else that I don't feel bad for is Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Amy Coney Barrett and Justice Elena Kagan appeared on Capitol Hill today to testify relating to their, I guess, experience as justices of the U.S. Supreme Court. I think it's undeniable that Amy Coney Barrett started changing the way she ruled because she did not like the fact that she and her family were being threatened. Number one, you know what you're signing up for when you are becoming a Supreme Court Justice of the United States. Number two, you've already got round-the-clock security and protection. Number three, if you cannot grow a spine, if you're unable to rule despite the fact that people hate you for what you believe and for your interpretation, of history and tradition, of judicial precedent, the Constitution, and laws as they exist, then I don't think you should be a Supreme Court Justice of the United States. I think that it is in the best interest of Amy Coney Barrett to abdicate her position as a SCOTUS. I think that she should go spend time with her kids and her husband. And I think that she should give President Trump the opportunity to choose somebody else. But in this exchange on Capitol Hill, she talks about the numerous things that she has experienced. And although I feel bad for her personally, I think that, again, Supreme Court justices need to have a stronger constitution, because we live in a world where people are not going to like you for the things you believe or for the decisions you make.
So I thought I would just share a little bit about how the threats have affected me and my family personally. They have required me to, my children, to think about and see things that children should not have to see or think about. One example is when threats to my life were particularly intense a few years ago around the time of the Dobbs leak.
Notice that the threats to her life stopped when she started voting with the lefties on the court.
My security detail sent me home with a bulletproof vest, and I carried it into my house, put it into my bedroom, dropped it down on a table, turned around, and my 12-year-old son was standing in the doorway of my bedroom, and he wanted to know what it was and why I had it, and I didn't know how to respond because maybe I lack imagination, but I didn't expect that performing this service was going to put me in the position of explaining to my children what a bulletproof vest was and why I had to wear one. It's also been reported in the news that roughly 6 weeks ago, I was the victim of a...
Wait a second. Are you for real? James Eckert Jr.'s pronouns are she, her, mer? Oh, my God. It's obviously a dude. What a weirdo. Anyways, he'll be popular in prison. Will to Push Forward says people like Amy Coney Barrett are showing to be an example of pursuing and achieving prestige in society, and then call it principle, along with decorating it with glamour, specifically when the onus must be upheld. Yeah. If you become a Supreme Court Justice of the United States, you have a duty to a higher calling. You have a lifetime appointment to the most powerful judicial position in our nation. You are part of those three branches of government. You are the pinnacle of that third branch of government, the judicial branch. And your responsibility is to the citizens of the United States. And you must accept with it that people are going to not like you. Okay, this is not a popularity contest. This is the Republic. Okay, everything is at stake here.
Swatting incident. At that point, my teenage son, one of my teenage sons, opened the door to go out with friends and saw in our street, it was full of police cars, who had responded to a false report of gunshots and raised voices in my home. I was very, very grateful that I had Supreme Court police outside my home because they were able to stop and meet with and explain to the county police that it had been a false alarm, and so the police did not actually attempt to enter our home. Many of us, me included, have received...
You know, the thing about it is, when you're a public official like Amy Coney Barrett, and you've had one fake swatting incident, the police then know not to show up next time. Like, they'll probably call and say, is everything okay, SCOTUS Justice Barrett? But they're not going to show up, and they're not going to take it seriously. And then hopefully they can investigate. Now, I believe that person who did that swatting incident is now rotting in federal prison.
Threatening anonymous deliveries designed to intimidate and harass us. They are often sent in the name of Judge Salas's son, who I think, as you mentioned in the beginning, Mr. Chairman, is deceased because he was killed by a disgruntled lawyer who showed up at Judge Salas's home.
Judge Salas, who was a judge in a filing related to Jeffrey Epstein and the case against him and, of course, his banks. That was a political hit. That had nothing to do with simply left-wing activism. And so I think it's very disingenuous for her to mention that because it's not like it was just some Antifa wacko that went and shot her son and her husband and then attempted to kill her. Totally different circumstance. nonetheless disturbing for someone to send packages to her in that young man's name. But what are the authorities doing about the people that are sending those packages?
Intending to kill her, but her son, 20 years old at the time, opened the door and took the bullet instead. Her husband, standing behind, was seriously injured. So I think the message on these deliveries being sent in his name is clear. As Justice Kagan said, federal judges across the country, throughout the judiciary, including the Supreme Court, continue to do their jobs without fear or favor, but the threat level is really high.
That is also disingenuous because they are not doing their jobs in many instances. You have left-wing justices of, all ranks from local, state, up to federal, and then obviously on the Supreme Court, who are merely left-wing luminaries, who are doing their jobs through the lens of politics, not through the lens of history and tradition. Those justices believe themselves to be above the law. And unfortunately, Congress appears to believe that they are also above the law. And the very limited attempts that we've had at impeachment have simply not worked. We still have that impeachment sitting there from Abe Hamada. Don't know if it's ever going to get any farther. But Justice Amy Coney Barrett is doing her job now in handcuffs, essentially. I don't believe that she is making choices based upon what her true beliefs are, but she is making choices based upon what she believes will bring her the least blowback. Now, it is, unfortunately, I need to announce that a deputy U.S. Marshal has been shot and killed while attempting to serve an arrest warrant on a fugitive in Alexandria, Virginia. The only good news is that suspect is in custody. So this unfortunately occurred yesterday around 3 p.m. when Deputy U.S. Marshal, who was assigned to the Western District of Louisiana, was shot and killed while serving this warrant. Now, this was a joint law enforcement operation involving members of both the U.S. Marshals Violent Offenders Task Force and detectives from the Rapids Parish Sheriff's Office. Authorities were attempting to apprehend a fugitive who was wanted in the Rutland Road area when gunfire erupted. The marshals confirmed a deputy assigned to the Western District was killed in the line of duty, and although the identity has not yet been released, or at least it wasn't at the time that this article was published, the family members of that slain deputy were being sought so that that information could be delivered to them first. So the FBI's New Orleans field office announced they would be leading the federal investigation into the shooting of the marshal, and the Rapids Parish Sheriff's Office and Louisiana State Police are also conducting related investigations. So the FBI responded to this incident yesterday in Alexandria with the Alexandria PD, Rapids Parish Sheriff's Office, and the Louisiana State Police. The Louisiana State Police is also investigating potential violations of state law. I'm sure that considering a U.S. Marshal was murdered, they're going to get him in any way that they can. And the RPSO confirmed the suspect did sustain injuries during the standoff and was transported to a local hospital. Neighbors said they were pretty shaken by witnessing the shooting. One resident, who has not been identified because they didn't want to be, said she heard multiple gunshots and immediately moved to protect her children. I just kept telling them, get down. I had them in the room down because I didn't know what the heck was going on. She also described the shooting as, hold on, where I missed it. She described the shooting and the sound of the gunfire. Not even 5 seconds later, that's when we heard the gunshots. It just went boom, 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 and then the cops ran back out. Multiple neighbors said they know the suspect, who lives just a few houses from the scene, and the neighbor also said she did not want to be identified because she lives in the area. He was a good man, you know. He was always in good spirits, so definitely didn't expect this. Obviously, he wasn't that good of a man if he had this violent offenders task force that was looking for him and attempting to serve the warrant. And then, of course, he kills a U.S. Marshal. Just popping this open so that I can see if the Marshal has been identified yet. Does not look like it. Given this is Louisiana, I don't know what the identity of the shooter is. I'm looking to see if they have identified him yet. Yeah, it doesn't look like much more information has come out, but solemn condolences for the family of the deputy. All right, now I do have a bit of an update on that case out of Fort Worth as well, where the Fort Worth PD seemed to need a little bit of a refresher course on exactly what the constitutional rights and civil liberties are for citizens of the United States. Harmeet Dillon has sent a letter, a notice to the Fort Worth PD after many officers on that team were exposed for infringing upon the First Amendment rights of Christians in their area. Harmeet Dillon said, "Dear Miss Guzman," that is the Fort Worth city attorney, I write you to seek information to help us determine whether to initiate a full investigation of the City of Fort Worth Police Department pursuant to 34 U.S.C. 12601. Publicly posted video recordings reportedly show Fort Worth PD officers instructing individuals to cease their speech or move the location of their speech based upon the content of the speaker's expression. If true, FWPD may be engaging in practices that restrict constitutionally protected speech based upon their viewpoint. This would raise significant concerns under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution and federal civil rights law. This letter provides the City of Fort Worth and the FWPD with the opportunity to give their side of the interactions, explain what actions they have taken, and inform us of how FWPD will ensure the protection of lawful speech moving forward. The Civil Rights Division is committed to ensuring that all Americans, regardless of the content or viewpoint of their speech, are protected from unlawful restrictions of expressive activity. Government actors may not engage in viewpoint discrimination or restrict peaceful expressive conduct simply because the speech may be unpopular, offensive, or controversial. The Supreme Court has long held the First Amendment prohibits government discrimination against speech based on its message, including discrimination tied to the specific motivating ideology or the opinion of the perspective of the speaker. And then she goes into several court cases which have established this in history and precedent. Although we are still reviewing the occurrences, each appears to involve officers responding to individuals engaged in expressive activity in public areas. This is settings where First Amendment protections are at their height. We understand the Fort Worth PD reportedly provided remedial training in at least one incident. Further, we are aware that the Fort Worth PD entered a consent decree in Grisham versus City of Fort Worth, through which the city agreed not to interfere with constitutionally protected expressions by the plaintiff in that case or other public speakers on public sidewalks and streets. We have concerns that the conduct described in those recent events may be inconsistent with the commitments reflected in that decree. So they are requesting information. They want the current First Amendment policies of the department. They want all of the training materials the police are provided with. They want administrative accountability records since that consent decree went into place. They want all records and recordings of enforcement proceedings per Grisham, which is the consent decree, and any information that the city attorney thinks would be helpful in helping the Civil Rights Division to determine whether or not their rights were violated. And, of course, as we saw in those multiple videos we played the other day, it's quite obvious that First Amendment rights were infringed upon.
Not talking.
Now, in case you were not here the other day, I am going to play this brief 1-minute video of a female Fort Worth police officer directly infringing upon the First Amendment rights of this street preacher, a man who was simply trying to express his First Amendment protected activity.
That ordinance means like music, not talking. If someone is offended by your talking, then we have a problem.
That is a constitutional violation of our rights. If you shut us down,
no. If they are offended by your speech, okay, then I'll write you this ticket, and then we'll go from there.
Wait, you're going to take us for offensive speech?
Yes, absolutely.
Are you serious?
Speech. You're going to cite us for offensive
speech. It's called disorderly conduct.
That's,
no.
Yes, disorderly conduct has to be accompanied by conduct.
This is the conduct
I'm
that you're
a retired
doing.
police officer myself.
For who?
26 years, federal law enforcement.
So it's federal. So this has nothing to do with local.
Wow.
It has nothing to do with local.
Yeah. Well,
do whatever you all need, think that you can do.
Yeah, whatever it says 80
whatever we
decibels.
think. Wow.
It says 80 decibels.
Since y'all know the law so well, I'm not going to let y'all do
So I just want to clarify. if anything is said that's offensive, you're going to write a ticket?
If someone complains that your language or what you're saying is offensive,
Hey, pretty loud.
Personally, this is beautiful to witness because there has already been at least one case like this that was proven to be a violation of rights in Fort Worth. So the gentlemen who are having their rights infringed upon by these multiple officers of the Fort Worth Police Department are likely going to have another open and shut case. And the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice is likely going to be acting on their behalf. It could also lead to the firing or, at a minimum, further training for these Fort Worth police officers. It also could result in a hefty settlement for the American citizens who had their First Amendment free speech protected activity infringed upon. So, yeah, go ahead. There is nothing wrong with being offended, but your offense does not have any bearing on my right to offend you. I love it, and keep it going. Thank you to Moon Baby, who says, "What up, familam? Thanks for the news, Zach. I appreciate you. I appreciate you as well." Also, thank you to Denise Ann, who says, "Zach, will you please share the zombie Mitch so I can share it with a friend? Also, do you think we have a shot at ACB reevaluating the ruling on birthright citizenship?" I think that if we have any hope of somebody reevaluating the birthright citizenship case, it's going to be Kavanaugh. It is possible that external pressure could be put on ACB, asking her to reevaluate, and that may likely be further pressed in President Trump's announcement on Thursday night. But I truly believe that if anybody is going to reevaluate in any meaningful way, it's going to be Brett Kavanaugh. I'm hoping that we may get a legislative solution in place before then, based upon the changes to the Immigration Act that we talked about yesterday. But again, I think if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Kavanaugh. And yes, I will share that. Just, you know what? Hold on just a second. I will share Zombie Mitch on X right now. Let me just find it in my downloads. Let me see. Okay, I think that this one is it. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm writing Zombie Mitch. Zombie Mitch, proof of life. Okay. This is the Brains and Power edit. Okay, there you go. Shared it. All right. Now, real quick before we get into the latest news on fake special counsel Jack Smith, thanks to Chuck Grassley, I do have a brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. Let me take this time to just ask you guys, if you would, to please hit that like button. Help us out by sharing the show. That would be super awesome. Now, if you guys have a dog at home, you are probably a lot like me. You already know that they are more than just a pet. They are truly part of your family. That's why they call dogs man's best friend. Well, it turns out that America's founding fathers were a lot like us. They felt the same way. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, several other of the men who lent their signature to the Declaration of Independence and helped build this country all had loyal dogs by their sides. Some of them even traveled with them during the Revolutionary War, and they were there for some of the most incredible moments in American history. When I found that out, I thought, man, that's actually a pretty cool way to get kids interested in history if they are dog lovers like us. Now, it turns out a company called The Kids Guide is actually doing just that. They have a guide called The Kids Guide to the Founders' Furry Friends, and it shares the true stories of the remarkable dogs that belong to America's founders. It's beautifully illustrated, it's easy for kids to enjoy, and it teaches them about the people who shaped our country through the stories of the companions that they loved the most. So let's be honest, getting kids excited about history might not always be easy, but tell them that they're about to learn about George Washington's dog, and you might have their attention. So I thought it was a genuinely clever idea, and if you've got kids or grandkids who love their dogs just as much as we do, I think they're going to have a lot of fun with this. They are running a special offer right now that includes the Kids Guide to the Founders' Furry Friends and some other freebies. If this sounds like something your family would enjoy, just head over to freeusadoggift.com. freeusadoggift.com. Or if you're on Rumble, you can use that QR code on screen right now. Thank you very much to them. And thank you for being here. Okay, now let me also say thank you very much to Bad Blondie. Bad Blondie, Patriot Challenge. If everyone who hits the like button can donate $1 today, Zach can meet his monthly stream goal. I'm covering 9 people who may not be able to donate. Thank you, Zach and Lisa. Thank you, Bad Blondie. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Denise Ann says, this is why women should not be able to be cops. So shameful. Wonder how she's going to feel when her rights are infringed upon. The sad part is that there were 2 male officers, one of them is superior to her, who also were grossly misinformed about what you can say in public. Snowcat Operator, thank you, sir. He says so Jim Banks entered that birthright citizenship bill. Yes, we spoke about this yesterday. This is the actual legislative action that I was just mentioning. Thank you, Snowcat Operator. Appreciate you. All right, so let's get back into fake special counsel Jack Smith. Chuck Grassley is a bloodhound. Have dog will hunt, and he is hunting, and he is not going to stop hunting until he gets every single little detail about Jack Smith. It turns out, of course, Jack Smith was spying on members of Congress, but it's much, much worse than simply looking at where they're going or their internet history. Jack Smith spied on 44 members of Congress and actually read their text messages. Even worse, he lied about it under oath. Now, this started as a release this morning. Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley revealed that fake former special counsel Jack Smith spied on these 44 members of Congress by reading their text messages. We previously knew that Jack Smith obtained their toll records or call logs of members of Congress, and Jack Smith said under oath that he never read any of their text messages. But now we know that to be a lie. So that means Jack Smith lied under oath. I received records from DOJ confirming Jack Smith's investigative team reviewed the contents of text messages sent by 44 members of Congress. I'm one of 44, Grassley said early this morning. I'm alerting my colleagues who were impacted and will release the records with Senator Johnson so American people can see the evidence. Now, the 44 members of Congress who were spied upon, I don't need to read all of them, but they're all Republicans. I believe that maybe, did I see Cory Booker's name? Karen Bass is a Democrat. She's on this list. Representative Adam Smith is a Democrat from Washington. He's on this list. Joshua Gottheimer, Democrat from New Jersey. He's on this list. Let me see. I want to see if there's any other Democrats. Oh, yeah, there he is. Senator Cory Booker. He's also on this list. So all of the usuals that you expect and were part of the toll records, you have Chuck Grassley, Ron Johnson, Cornyn, Graham, Hawley, Lee, Sullivan, Perdue, Alexander, Rand Paul, Rick Scott, Roy Blunt, Senator Cory Gardner. I mean, you got 44 names, and pretty much half of them are senators, half of them are representatives. Lee Zeldin was on there. Anyways, and according to these documents that we got earlier this year, we know that the FBI and the DOJ weaponized their power against President Trump. They also were going after former Vice President Mike Pence. That was all through the Arctic Frost investigation. That was the taxpayer-funded witch hunt, which they launched in April of 2022. They seized all of those government-issued cell phones belonging to President Trump and former Vice President Mike Pence, and then they started doing interviews all across the country. This was all in relation to the 2020 election and the so-called fake electors. This was, in fact, a witch hunt where Jack Smith was attempting to gain any bit of information that he could potentially weaponize against any person who was a sympathetic or friendly with President Trump. Okay, so let me show you Jack Smith lying under oath. And hold on, I just need to... Okay, so Jack Smith is asked about the exact nature of the data that he got from the spying activities on these members of the House and the Senate.
Did the toll records that you requested from the senators, did they include the content of the phone calls?
No.
Did the records that you requested, the toll records from the members of Congress, include the content of text messages?
No.
Can you explain for us on the record?
Survey says that was a lie. It was absolutely 100% a lie. Now, Jack Smith's lead henchman in the J6 investigation was a man by the name of Tom Wyndham. Tom Wyndham worked with the NARA general counsel, Gary Stern. Those two had already participated in the classified documents case against President Trump and had visited the Biden White House on numerous occasions to obtain text messages of those Trump White House officials from October 2020 to January 20th of 2021. After Stern produced the data from NARA, Jack Smith's team got their hands on the text messages from those 44 members of Congress. Now, you can see here in this release from Chuck Grassley, you have all of these people, somebody from the Justice Department, Gary Stern from NARA, and the subject is NARA. Gary, good speaking to you the other week. Please find attached redacted requiring NARA to produce certain documents. Please call with questions. Thanks, TW. That is Tom Wyndham. So Jack Smith's team gets these text messages, which includes the contents of those messages. And according to Grassley, Wyndham recklessly sent the text spreadsheets to the entire investigative team. What he did is he bypassed the required filter team, which is designed to remove any potentially privileged materials from investigators before those messages arrive in their hands. So the Biden DOJ gets busted at the same time doing the same thing following that raid on Mar-a-Lago, which is one of the reasons why Judge Cannon appointed that special master back in September of 2022. Now, NARA is appears to be a major nexus in all of these investigations. Remember, it was NARA who kicked off the so-called classified documents investigation at the beginning. And these NARA officials under Biden continue to show up during this grand conspiracy investigation against President Trump. Paul Sperry says, as more and more materials are declassified, so too is DOJ official Molly Gaston. So he's putting Molly Gaston directly in the crosshairs. Now, also from, this is a repeat of that same tweet that I just put forward. Now, last night, Paul Sperry also said special counsel John Durham completely whiffed on the real foreign interference in 2016, orchestrated by Ukraine in collusion with the Obama admin and the Hillary campaign, new details of which are contained in several hundred pages of FBI and intelligence community docs, filling a number of boxes uncovered by Joe DeGeneva's team, possibly declassified for release by the end of the summer. Durham omitted the anti-Trump Ukraine op from his final report on Spygate. So we're looking to see what is said about Ukraine when President Trump does his Oval Office address coming up very soon. Now, Sundance from The Last Refuge takes issue with Paul Sperry's characterization. And he says John Durham didn't whiff on anything. Neither did Bill Barr make any mistakes. I know because I talked to them. I understood their intent. Bill Barr and John Durham were never investigating any government misconduct. They were never looking at anyone inside government, any agency for any wrongdoing. John Durham was only told his focus could only be to look at outside government actors for those who operated on the Russiagate stuff. They didn't make any mistakes. They didn't miss things. They didn't track the wrong tails, etc. They intentionally and purposefully protected the institutions of government and the people within them. There is no apple. It's all worms. Now, if this characterization is correct, then it would make sense why John Durham's investigation apparently didn't seem to go after the people that we believed should be prosecuted for what they did to President Trump and to the American people. And if Ukraine is who we are specifically going to be looking at for committing election interference back in 2016 and 2020, then I believe that that would be one of the reasons why they wouldn't want anybody looking there, especially given the proximity of the Biden crime family to Ukrainian criminal actions. And, of course, the Central Intelligence Agency's proximity to Ukraine as well. So the fight for the Save America Act continues, and Representative Anna Paulina Luna directly asked Mike Johnson to attach the Save America Act to all appropriations bills that they were planning to prepare and then send to the Senate. And she essentially went on Twitter and dared John Thune to try to strip the Save America Act provisions out of everything that they're going to be sending them. This is obviously a bold provocation and I think a great move, because by including Save America Act provisions in every single appropriations bill that they send over, they are giving John Thune multiple opportunities to force the passage of the SAVE Act. So she called on Johnson to use something called the MERV process. It's a military acronym for Multiple Impact Reentry Vehicles in order to get the Save America Act placed. Under a MERV, legislation is passed individually before being combined into one legislative vehicle without a vote on the final package before it gets sent to the Senate. So once the rule passes the structure through this process, each provision is then voted on individually, passing with different coalitions of votes, and all members understand that the bills will be combined without a vote at the end. The vote on final passage, to that extent that it exists, is a vote for or against the rule. So Luna essentially daring John Thune to strip out the SAVE Act before the legislation gets to the Senate is the only way that this would not end up passing through the Senate. And then, obviously, if Thune removes the SAVE Act from the legislation that has already passed through the U.S. House of Representatives, it shows to people in his state and across the country, and of course to the Trump administration, that he is not truly in favor of voter ID or election integrity. And Thune is right now getting the brunt of the ire from the people of the United States, and of course from insiders in Washington and from his constituents back home in South Dakota, because he continues to fail to push the Save America Act forward. Everybody knows President Trump has said it routinely. Between 80 and 92% of Americans believe that you should only be a citizen of the United States to cast a ballot in a federal election. There should be no problem proving that. And there should be no problem showing your ID when you go to vote. So Anna Paulina Luna says we will try the MERV process on the condition that the Speaker attaches the Save America Act to all appropriation bills and all must-pass bills here in the House and ensures that it is sent to the Senate as one bill. If Thune strips it out in the Senate, that will be on him, and the entire country should be watching what he does. If he wants to actively work against voter ID and the Save America Act, he must face the consequences of his actions. His state party should censure him, and he should be primaried if he wants to betray his constituents in this manner. That is the nature of politics. She further went on to explain exactly how Thune could strip it out. If it's stripped out in the Senate, the blame, again, falls solely on Thune. There's a little thing in the Senate known as the amendment tree. It determines the maximum number of amendments that can be offered to any one given bill. If Leader Thune deliberately fills the tree, he can block individual senators from offering additional amendments, such as one that would keep the Save America Act attached if he strips it out. So going based off of his comments so far, Thune is planning to do this with the NDAA by offering his own version of the NDAA that does not include the Save America Act and then filling the tree with other useless amendments. He would probably plan to do the same with any other House-passed bills that include Save America. So again, he is actively working against the 80% of Americans that support it. Shame on him. So now testing this theory, the House has advanced legislation which includes the Save America Act. They've attached it to the must-pass national security funding legislation on top of stopping the seasonal clock change. This passed in the House 215 to 211. So now if John Thune is willing to strip the Save America Act from legislation that would other be forced to pass in the Senate, it's obviously that he is working against the people of the United States.
On this vote, the yeas are 215, the nays are 211. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
So we'll see what happens, but if he does strip it out, it's obviously going to be 100% confirmation that he is exactly the man that we think he is. Thank you very much to Sean Joe for 2 cookies. Thank you to Filter Dog, who says the House has passed legislation to make daylight savings time permanent nationwide, ending the twice-a-year clock change. Yes. So, yes, we now no longer have to worry about daylight savings time. I'm pretty happy about that, too. All right, so after President Trump fired the 2 Democrats on the Election Assistance Commission and secured the resignation of the last remaining Republican, it was only a matter of time before one of them stepped forward.
Make America great again.
To speak about their experience. I want to say also thank you so much to Warrior Mima for just donating over there on Ko-Fi, ko-fi.com/redpill78. Thank you very much, Warrior Mima. And let me see if she has a message that's included. She says, adding to your monthly goal. Love you, Zach. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you. All right, so in President Trump pulling a major flex, terminating those 2 Democratic members of the Election Assistance Commission and receiving the voluntary resignation of the 3rd, it allows President Trump to appoint people to the Election Assistance Commission who are 100% in line with election security. A lot of Democrats are very upset about it. If it wasn't for the Slaughter decision, he wouldn't have been able to successfully secure those firings. And it's notable that the EAC has previously operated not just without a quorum, but without any commissioners for almost 3 years, between December 30th in 2011 to December 16th of 2014. This so-called independent federal agency has been without a quorum for 1 in every 5 days of its existence. Now, former Democrat Commissioner Benjamin Hovland is the one who sat down with NPR for this interview that was published yesterday. Hovland acknowledged that in some ways, he knew his termination was coming as a result of the Slaughter decision. Now, outlining the major functions of the EAC, which was created by the Help America Vote Act of 2002, or HAVA, following the contentious 2000 election, Hovland stated that the EAC was charged with certifying voting equipment, distributing grant money from Congress, doing 50 state research to help set data-driven decisions, and then serving as a clearinghouse for the best practices across the country. As you all know, the Election Assistance Commission failed miserably in the majority of its stated goals. But he continued to say that the great staff in place will continue to do their work. However, the adoption of things like the new voting system standards can't happen without a quorum. However, as we've just shown, a quorum didn't exist previously, and it didn't stop the Election Assistance Commission from making decrees that were then put in place all around the country. Hovland, of course, also asserted that election officials across party lines benefited from the work of the commission, attributing a joke to a colleague that assistance is our middle name. Oh, that's the wrong button. There we go. When asked if Hovland felt that the firings were part of the president's efforts to influence elections or to interfere with them to benefit himself and his party.
Make America great again.
S.A. Sprague, thank you very much also for supporting over here on Ko-Fi. Let me read that message. Says, thanks for all you do, Zach. We love you, kid. I appreciate you. Really, thank you very, very much for that generous support. He said, I think it's very concerning. I certainly think that it is an erosion of sort of the norms and the structures. As you mentioned earlier, you know, the agency was set up to be a bipartisan independent agency. So much of election administration, you have bipartisan teams. And that's a checks and balances with the parties working together to agree on the rules so that you know how the elections are going to be run. And ultimately, so the winner can be confident and the loser can be confident and acknowledge that they lost the race. And as you eliminate things, or if you get rid of commissioners, for example, or as you eliminate some of these other sorts of safeguards and norms, it certainly strains the system. And it certainly also likely causes people to lose faith in our democracy and in the process and their confidence in our elections. And it's very concerning. I don't know where the hell he's been living for the last 20 years, but all of that has happened absent any influence of the Election Assistance Commission, or perhaps with the assistance of the Election Assistance Commission. Now, Hovland and his other Democrat board member, Thomas Hicks, were both appointed by Barack Obama. Hovland was confirmed by the Senate. He went and was seated in January 2019. Hicks was sworn in January of 2015. Section 231B of HAVA requires the EAC to provide accreditation and revocation of accreditation of independent, non-federal laboratories qualified to test voting systems to federal standards. However, as we've shown in the past, one of the voting system testing labs that was tasked
Make America great again.
with the certification of those machines in the 2020 election had accreditations which had previously expired in February of 2017. So at the time they were allegedly performing their accreditations, there was actually no active certification on file. And any accreditation that they may have given would have been null and void and effectively illegal under the terms of HAVA. Rico Plays Guitar, also thank you so much for that donation over on Ko-Fi. Hope this helps you set your goal. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Now, accreditations expire every 2 years, and the EAC has not published their upgraded credentials for more than 3 years following that 2017 expiration. When this was discovered by independent researchers, because apparently the EAC didn't even know that they were out of compliance, this, of course, was after the contentious election of 2020, the EAC's then voting system testing and certification director, Jerome Lovato, wrote a memo in January of 2021. Due to the outstanding circumstances posed by COVID-19, the renewal process for EAC laboratories has been delayed for an extended period. While this process continues, ProVNV retains its EAC VSTL accreditation. Now, considering that ProVNV's accreditation expired in 2019, by the time the election happened in 2021, they had already been out of compliance for over a year. And then by January of 2021, you're actually looking at now getting into the second year of not being accredited. So what happened before COVID-19? Because before COVID-19, they simply weren't doing their job at that time either. So this was within the scope of the SLI compliance accreditation, which had expired just a few weeks prior to the notice. But this claim fell short for ProVNV, whose accreditation had expired more than 3 years before the COVID-19 pandemic. SLI Compliance's accreditation faced additional scrutiny, however, because its previous accreditation was for a 3-year term, while the law limited it to a 2-year term. So they were completely out of compliance in so many different ways. And the EAC is also responsible for developing the voluntary voting system guidelines according to their own website. Voluntary Voting System Guidelines, or VVSG, are a set of specifications and requirements against which voting systems can be tested to determine if they meet required standards. Now, up until February of 2021, the EAC utilized VVSG 1.0 and 1.1 as the standard against which it was tested. For context, 1.0 was adopted on December 13th of 2005. So those guidelines were almost 15 years old at the time of the 2020 presidential election, and they predated the very first iPhone by almost 2 years. Technology has obviously advanced quite a bit in that more than 15-year period. They went from flip phones to a device that can now control every facet of your life. But the EAC standards for voting equipment have changed minimally. You can bet that the voting machines themselves have also advanced quite a bit. So VVSG 2.0 was adopted in February 2021, and as of November 2023, VVSG 1.0 and 1.1 are no longer used to certify those voting systems. However, on the EAC website, they say that VVSG 1.0 and 1.1 certified voting systems can still continue to be used, and they do not need to be replaced by systems that are certified to the VVSG 2.0 unless otherwise indicated and dictated by individual state statute. Now, while HAVA mandates that EAC develop and maintain those requirements, adherence by the states is voluntary, as the name suggests. So, was President Trump justified in firing an independent, quote, body that used the COVID-19 pandemic as an excuse to justify a 3-year lapse in accreditation of just one of the 2 testing labs and hadn't updated their own systems guidelines that predated the inception of the smartphone? I would say that yes, he was absolutely justified in doing so. I would like to know what these people were being paid to do throughout that entire time period. President Trump firing these commissioners was not influence peddling. He wasn't seeking to push elections in one way or another, unless you want to say that he was pushing elections towards a more secure election system. This is not about benefiting him or the party. It's about the benefit that the people of the United States of America received. Because why does a commission exist if they do not do their jobs? It's very similar to why does a border exist if we're not going to enforce it? Why do laws exist if they're not going to be enforced either? We are living in a lawless time, my friends. Well, certainly not for people like us. The laws are always enforced when it comes to us, and they are enforced heavy-handedly. But when it comes to these sorts of things, people just get away with murder. All right. Thank you so much to several people over on Rumble. Howard the Duck, good to see you, buddy. Always a pleasure to listen to you every day. God bless. Thank you, sir. Ram 2017, enjoying the show. Buy your wife a caramello. I plan to do so later tonight. Siesta Randy, he says, the monthly stream goal graph never changes. Great show, Zach. It only changes based upon Ko-Fi, because I don't have the ability to bring in the information from Rumble. So it's kind of arbitrary over there on Ko-Fi. Thank you to Make Sense to Meet You. Challenge accepted. I appreciate you. Missy Brash, we've got your back, Zach. Thank you, Missy. And ZBM, hola, Red Pill fans. Don't know what we're fundraising for exactly, but you don't need to twist my arm to jump on the RP78 bandwagon. Down the hatch, all you beautiful people. Great show, per usual. Thank you. Yes, this was a challenge that was created by Bad Blondie to basically help keep me on the air. You guys know I am not a traditional W-2 employee. I employ myself, and I get paid because of the generosity of the people who watch the show. So you are directly paying my salary to allow me to bring you these programs every single day so that I can keep all of you abreast on what is happening from day to day. So thank you very, very much for your generous support of myself and my program. I am not part of the 7,000 Club. I do not get money from any foreign government or even my own government, and it is only through the kindness of the people watching these programs that I am able to continue doing them. All right, now, Jake Traylor set off a firestorm yesterday. While we were live on the air, the announcement was given that President Trump was planning to do that Oval Office address, likely talking about election security here in the United States of America. And it was Jake who first published that Trump's speech is slated to address newly declassified intelligence reports that the White House asserts reveal plans by foreign nations to interfere in the 2020 election. Now, this was according, allegedly, to 2 White House officials granted anonymity to discuss internal plans. Turns out that no one was granted anonymity, and there definitely was a speech or an outline that was being given to Jake Traylor and people at MSNBC. But this, as I said in the opening, appears to be a canary trap. Whoever it was that leaked this out of the White House definitely did not have the okay from the administration to do this. Now, President Trump is going to be giving us this address Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern, and as we showed yesterday, he said President Trump will be making a speech to the nation on Thursday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Many people are speculating what this is going to entail, as we are all basically addicted to the idea of fixing our elections. I am certain that that will be at least the most important piece that President Trump is going to be touching on. But the exact nature of that announcement. That's the only thing we don't know. Is it going to be a reveal of the 2020 election? Is he going to focus on Georgia? Is he going to focus on the outside influence of, say, China and Ukraine or Venezuela? Are we finally going to have President Trump recognizing the issues with Smartmatic and the software that underpins our electronic voting system? Who knows at this point? But I sincerely hope that President Trump is going to declare a national emergency due to the insecure nature of our elections. And I think that the information he presents will likely force the Senate to adopt the Save America Act, which in part will help to secure our elections. But there are efforts that President Trump can take on his own. Simply putting out another executive order, I don't think that that's going to be the answer, because he's already put out all of these various executive orders, and they just get challenged in the court. So we had, of course, Patty McMurray and her investigators in Michigan working with Yehuda Miller, who had their specific investigation into the various irregularities that took place in Detroit. We went into that in detail. Maybe President Trump has gotten that information. Maybe he's going to talk about that. But MS Now published their own report where they say that someone in the White House or some other department close to President Trump in the administration leaked the full content of that announcement to MS Now's David Rode, Jacqueline Almani, Laura Barron Lopez, and Ken Delanian on exactly what that's going to be. Now, the people, whoever it was that leaked this, either they had a trap set for them or they set the trap for these deep state MS Now reporters. So Christina Layla reported that this new White House task force reviewing thousands of pages of classified intelligence and law enforcement documents for evidence of irregularities in U.S. elections is expected to begin releasing documents within weeks, two other officials have said. Now, we also expect President Trump to be joined by CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Acting DNI Bill Pulte, DHS Chief Markwayne Mullen, and FBI Director Kash Patel. That is pretty much like the dream team of law enforcement and intelligence gathering right there. I would hope that maybe Todd Blanche is going to be there as well. So President Trump plans to deliver this speech on this newly declassified intelligence report. If that is the case, then I'm expecting that to be the final report of what Tulsi Gabbard and the DNI had been working on. The one thing I can tell you is that the left appears to be absolutely freaking out about just what this could be. But I'm also believing that the leak itself could be part of a drive to find and get rid of the people who are subverting the White House from the inside. Now, Steve Bannon, I guess, had a bit of a tirade that he went off on Ben Rode for leaking this information. Don't know exactly who is alleged to have this. I tried to see if I could find a copy of it online. Nobody's releasing it. That would probably put them in legal jeopardy. But Steve Bannon is saying that this is a disinformation that is being put out. And that would fall right in line with, my theory that this is a canary trap.
There's a whole of government effort that's...
Now, David Rode is who we spoke about yesterday, where he claimed that President Trump was making all of these changes to the election system in order to effectively steal the election. This is like the dream conspiracy theory for the left right now.
It's Trump, and that will start.
Okay, hang on right there. A constant flow of disinformation. You're a bald-faced liar, dude. I don't know why we're not playing hardball with the media.
Now, here's the thing. I don't know that we're not playing hardball. That's one of the reasons why I think that they would do this canary trap, is so that they could then follow those leads and then go after those people. But once President Trump reveals whatever evidence he wants to reveal, that is obviously going to be a very different ballgame. Like I was saying to John last night, I don't necessarily think that this release is for us. We are the initiated, right? We've been following the concept and the problems with the U.S. election for years at this point. This is going to be a release to prove all of the people like Ben Rhodes who claim that this is just disinformation incorrect. It's also going to be to show the rest of the country that the elections are stolen. Now, we had the supposed theory yesterday that President Trump was going to outright say that John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock are illegitimate because of fraud. Now, that was from the Washington Reporter. Now, they are walking that back. The White House tells us President Trump's speech will not focus on Georgia's 2020 elections. Now, that doesn't mean that President Trump will not discuss the illegitimate nature of Georgia's elections. It would make total sense because we have 260 FBI intelligence analysts there right now identifying problems in Fulton County. But Georgia Republican sources are telling us that they were notified of the speech and the upcoming report's initial Georgia election focus in advance. So I do think that President Trump will discuss Georgia if he's going to be talking about election security and the fake and gay nature of U.S. elections. Wow. MAMFC says, to your W2 form, LOL, great job. Thank you very much. $50 rant. I really appreciate you. Mimi Two Boys X2 and says, and here is my dues. Thank you, Zach and Lisa. Thank you, Mimi. And Bowler Jack Bryan, another $50 rant. Here is to your monthly goal, my friend. I love Red Pill News as always. You, sir, are a scholar and a gentleman. Thank you for that. RL Skeeter, $25 rant. Thank you for your dedication to us all in presenting and commenting on the events. I really appreciate you, homie. Thank you for that. And then Acox, let's go. Thank you. I appreciate you as well. Really, thank you very much, you guys. Also, thank you to Rook Castle. Good to see you, Rook. Hope you and Mrs. opt for the steak without the salad. I think that's probably what we're going to do. Thank you to No Thanks Joe, who says, thanks again, Zach and Lisa. Happy Taco Tuesday. I appreciate all your work. Thanks again. God bless and be safe. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you as well. All right, so we do have a statement from President Trump. Earlier today in the Oval Office, the mainstream media was trying to bait President Trump and get him to basically tell them exactly what he's going to say ahead of this announcement. Now, stopping just short of really giving it away, he definitely teased it for us.
Machines and integrity. Can you give us sort of a sneak peek about what to expect and tell
Well,
the
I'd rather save it. It will concern that subject, and we'll have a couple of other things to
Why
say
should people
also.
watch, though?
But I'd rather save it, but it's really big news. It's really, really big news. And our country has to shape up. But that's what we're going to be talking about Thursday is it doesn't get bigger, because without free and fair elections, you don't have a country. We'll be discussing other things too, but it's going to be a very big announcement. Yeah?
Okay, so I mean, from the horse's mouth right there, elections as big as it gets, very important. I'm standing on the rug, guys. I am standing on this rug. I am ready for it. And I'm just praying that we are not going to get it ripped out from underneath us. We've been waiting for Tulsi Gabbard and the DNI's report. I think Bill Pulte is ready to bring it. They've already got the information. Hell, we have been investigating the election fraud in our country for so many years. There are so many different pathways for it. And it's a lot more than just what's happening here in the United States. We know that there is foreign influence in our elections, and we know it's not Russia. Okay? We have plenty of evidence about China. We have plenty of evidence about Ukraine. We have plenty of evidence about the CIA and other foreign officials involved in this as well. I can only hope that this is exactly what we believe it to be, and I am waiting with bated breath. So excited to see what happened. All right, now, but we do have, and this is another clue that I think we have a canary trap going on here, because John Solomon says, don't believe the leaks. Now, there have been so many leaks with regards to this speech. I don't know exactly what he's pointing to, but let's take a listen to his commentary.
What will be the headline Friday morning regarding the speech? I mean, what do you think? This feels like a bit of a potpourri. I don't know what to expect exactly.
Well, one of the things I have learned to expect is that if you see mainstream headlines 2 days or 3 days ahead of an event with anonymous sources, you should probably assume they're not going to be 100% accurate. There is a really good track record on this, that media often get what's going on in the Trump White House wrong. I am aware what the president's going to talk about. I can't talk about it yet. We'll have to, I'm in a White House job temporarily. And so let's wait and see what the president does. I will say I've seen several stories written in the last 12 hours, some mentioning me by name
And I can tell you that many, many things in those stories are wrong. And that's just been.
Now, keep in mind, John Solomon has left Just the News to take this position in the White House. His job is to specifically go through all of this material and tell the White House what needs to be released and what needs to be acted on. Nobody has been closer to this stuff than John Solomon over the last 10 years. He is the perfect person to do this job. And I think that John Solomon is a kindred spirit. He is one of us, guys. All right. He cares just as much about these issues, and he has been front and center for a lot of it. Obviously, he's been closer to it than any of us. So when John Solomon speaks, I listen.
The dynamic of the Trump presidency, the mainstream media can't get in. They're not trusted by the White House. And then they write stories that, when compared to what ultimately happens or the facts, get debunked. That's Russia collusion, Hunter Biden, and quite frankly, almost everything that happens day in and day out in this Trump White House. So I'd encourage people to tune in. I think when the president picks a primetime news conference, it means he has something very important to talk about. And I don't think he'll fail to deliver that. I think he'll deliver something really important to the American people.
All right, John, you know me. You can't just tease me saying, I know what he's going to talk about, but I'm not going to really share. So I'll try to circumnavigate that by asking potentially probing questions. There's reporting this morning, and you mentioned that some of these reports aren't necessarily always accurate. So is the reporting accurate that the president will address Iran, which seems that it might make sense given that he notified Congress yesterday or recently that hostilities or the war is continuing? Is that reporting accurate? We'll start there.
I don't think the speech is set yet, so I think we ought to wait and see what he does. I unfortunately, I have to shed my journalist title for a day or two and be allegiant to the commitments I made in the project I'm on. But I think people will walk away from Thursday night's press conference with a lot of new information and say, wow, that was pretty amazing. I think that's what is there. Not everything is set in stone. And as you know, 3 days is an eternity in a White House. So what people think they might be doing on Monday could be entirely different by Thursday. And I think we should wait, trust that the president has a big reason to be doing a primetime press conference and or a primetime speech and talk directly to the American people and see what it is. But I think people will be, from what I know, I think it'll be a very newsy speech.
Very newsy speech. Well, either way, from President Trump's own words, it sounds like there will be multiple subjects that will be hit upon. We're getting so close to the election. We have such little action coming from the Senate. We need, obviously, movement in that direction. Now, going in that with that line of thinking, I thought that this was an important thing to highlight because every single day, we talk about like individual cases. We'll talk about this or that related to illegal aliens who are casting ballots or different cases against different people. That letter that Harmeet Dillon sent to all 50 secretaries of state was highly consequential because she put them directly on notice. And as I've said before, when you're a lawyer, if you're going to court, you don't ask questions that you don't already know the answer to. Harmeet Dillon is aware that illegal aliens are on the voter rolls, even if they haven't gained access to the voter rolls. We've proven this in the past with numerous instances of it in Michigan alone. So remember that the Kansas mayor who was born in Mexico, the man was not a citizen of the United States. He ran for mayor in Kansas and he won. Well, the DOJ obviously arrested him and he ended up getting deported. You had a Filipino senior citizen who was living in Hawaii, 2 Pakistani men living in New Jersey, that Australian woman living in Louisiana, the Chinese student at the University of Michigan in Michigan. All of them have the same thing in common. They were illegal aliens and they cast ballots in federal elections. Every single one of them has been charged in the last year with illegally voting in federal elections as citizens of other nations. This is part of a brand new wave of prosecutions led by the Justice Department. This is a crime that we have always been told is so rare, it's not even bothered. We shouldn't even bother talking about. But the Trump Justice Department has secured about 24 non-citizen voting arrests, prosecutions, or convictions in just the last couple of months alone. And what you might not know is there's about 90 additional other cases that are currently under investigation. And all 50 states getting that letter from Harmeet Dillon and the Civil Rights Division proves that election officials can and will be prosecuted if they continue to allow non-citizens to vote. I think there's enough evidence right now to charge those people. But as Harmeet Dillon said, you've got to have consciousness of guilt. They have caught these people. They have prosecuted them. They've got 90 more investigations that are in the pipeline. They have told the secretaries of state, you are now made aware that we know there are illegals on these voter rolls. If you allow them to vote, we will consider it as the commission of a crime. It isn't just bad policy to let non-citizens vote in federal elections. It's a crime, and this Justice Department will intend to prosecute that crime if this election officials, having been informed that they are non-citizens on their voter rolls, knowingly allow those people to vote, enable their enrollment on the voter rolls, are passive in the face of this knowledge, etc. This is not some idle threat. This is what Harmeet Dillon said when she sent that letter. So DOJ officials have found 3 major problems in policing states' voter rolls ahead of the 2026 election. Hundreds of thousands of dead people are still eligible to vote. Tens of thousands of illegal aliens are on the voter rolls, and scores of foreigners have gone beyond just registering, and they have in fact voted in federal elections. All of this is illegal. So with her as the top election cop at the DOJ, she believes the numbers of foreigners illicitly voting in elections is probably a lot higher.
America great again.
Thank you very much to Little Lynn over on Ko-Fi for that support. Let me go ahead and pull up that message. Little Lynn says, I always look forward to your daily news updates. I am a longtime fan of your channel, going back to well before you showed your face on camera, and I was even watching live when Muffingate happened. Thank you for putting on such a great show every day. You are awesome. Thank you very much, Lynn. I appreciate you, and I thank you very much for the support. And let me see. Okay, so the numbers of those foreigners voting is probably much, much higher. But they have been continuously frustrated that U.S. attorneys' offices across the country have not made illegal voting a much larger priority until just recently. This is something that they should have done a long time ago. But as I think all of you are aware, they intended for these illegal aliens to vote, and they were intentionally looking to subvert our system of governance. We are trying to empty an ocean with a teaspoon because there isn't a culture of U.S. attorneys going after these. Well, this is now changing after this explosion of cases. Just before the 250th birthday celebration, 3 non-U.S. citizens in Florida confessed to having knowingly voted in federal elections despite not being eligible. Federal law obviously requires voters to be American citizens to vote at the federal level, but some states and cities allow non-citizens to vote in local elections. These 3 non-citizens voted in Florida, and 2 of them, one from Cuba and the other from Haiti, admitted to voting in the 2020 federal elections. The third, a Brazilian, voted in a federal election in 2024 after becoming a lawful permanent resident. Voting in federal elections is one of the most important rights and responsibilities of American citizenship. This is U.S. Attorney Jason Redding Quinones, otherwise known as Captain America, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. Federal law is clear. Only U.S. citizens may vote in federal elections. These defendants admitted to knowingly violating that law. And then the case in Hawaii, a foreigner was charged for the first time in 4 decades with voting in federal elections in that state. Remedies Alasasis, 66 years old, a Philippines national living in Maui, was charged last month with illegally voting in the 2022 general election and then again in the August 2024 primary. North Carolina, we had that Canadian man living in the U.S. since the 1960s. He was sentenced to 2 months in prison after pleading guilty to making false claims about his citizenship to vote in various elections going back to 2004. And liberal organizations like the Brennan Center for Justice and many Democrats argue non-citizen registrations are merely a minor problem that are overblown by conservatives. But that case has been harder to make as the evidence continues to pile up, and so do the prosecutions. Of course, take, for instance, Michigan Democrat Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, who has long claimed non-citizens do not vote in her state. But last year, she was forced to admit she found 15 credible cases of foreigners voting in the 2024 elections. One of them was that Chinese student at the University of Michigan who turned himself in after allegedly being registered to vote and casting a ballot in the general. The student was charged with 2 felonies, false swearing to register to vote and trying to vote as an unqualified elector. These are the cases that have forced Jocelyn Benson to change her messaging. This is a serious issue. One we must address with a scalpel, not a sledgehammer, she said after she was exposed. In the nation's capital, one of the most Democrat bastions in the country, a conservative watchdog group reported it found evidence that nearly 400 non-citizens voted in the 2024 general. It is an outrage and an insult to every American citizen, and it may be a violation of federal law that D.C. allowed 388 foreign nationals to vote in the 2024 general election. This was, of course, discovered by Judicial Watch and Tom Fitton. Congress can and should end this practice immediately. Non-citizens legally in the country place themselves at far more risk than just prosecution if they unlawfully vote, because their pathway to citizenship and their ability to stay in the country can very quickly be stripped away. Take, for example, Joe Caballos, that Mexican national and former mayor of Coldwater, Kansas, who recently was ordered to report to federal immigration detention after pleading guilty to voting illegally as a non-citizen. Caballos earlier this year pled guilty to 3 misdemeanor charges for voting without being a U.S. citizen. He said, "It was an honest mistake, boss," because he was a permanent legal resident. Now, the non-citizen registration and voting cases are expected to soar. Trump administration officials like Dillon believe the total number of foreigners who make it onto voter rolls will grow into the hundreds of thousands when the reviews of state voter rolls are ultimately completed. Many blue and even some red states continue to fight in court to block the DOJ from taking a look at those voter rolls. The dozen or so states that have cooperated in some form have identified 20 to 30,000 non-citizens on their rolls, and a much larger block of non-citizens is expected to be found in the non-cooperating states, places like New York, New Jersey, Illinois, and especially California. So the DOJ push comes as President Trump tries to persuade a reluctant U.S. Senate to pass the Save America Act. Obviously, we need to impose U.S. citizenship and voter ID on federal election voters. Some congressional Republicans believe Democrat resistance to the election may be a sign of something more sinister. That is what I believe. Obviously, political parties want to cheat. They will do what they can to fight to prevent photo ID in those states. That is Representative Glenn Grothman, a Republican from Wisconsin. And that is a problem we have here. People are going to continue to feel that elections are not honest, because they're not, because that's the only reason I can think of why people would not want photo ID. I mean, my goodness, you need it for things like getting a drug prescription to save your life, and that's right, but there are politicians, all of whom happen to be Democrats, who feel that photo ID is racist. And so if we tuck it into some sort of spending bill, then we can at least make a step in the right direction. And that is exactly what Anna Paulina Luna did earlier today. Now, this was a welcome announcement that I saw. It was jointly coming from the VA and Health and Human Services. They have just launched a new psychedelic therapy partnership that looks to benefit more than 1 million veterans. So, seeking to expand treatment options to veterans, the Department of Veterans Affairs and the Department of Health and Human Services yesterday launched a 5-year partnership designed to accelerate research into psychedelic therapies and prepare for the VA to deliver them if they receive federal approval. Secretary Doug Collins and Secretary Kennedy signed this memorandum of understanding at the VA headquarters yesterday, implementing President Trump's Executive Order 14401. That executive order directs federal agencies to accelerate medical treatments for serious mental illness by expanding research, increasing clinical trial participation, and improving coordination among agencies responsible for evaluating and delivering new therapies. So hang on just a second. The agreement seeks to bring closer collaboration between the two departments, expanding clinical trials, training therapists and physicians, sharing research data with the Food and Drug Administration, and developing treatment protocols so veterans can more quickly access psychedelic-assisted therapies if the FDA deems them safe and effective. Nearly 6 million veterans right now live with mental illness or substance use disorders. About 1 million of them has serious serious mental illness, Kennedy said during the signing ceremony. These Americans answered our nation's call, and now it is our turn to answer theirs. They deserve more than sympathy. They deserve every opportunity to heal. Kennedy said the administration intends to follow science rather than politics as they evaluate these emerging therapies. Strong evidence, not ideology or politics, must guide our medical decision-making in this country. These studies will help determine which therapies work, what the proper dosage is, what patients benefit, and how can we deliver these treatments safely. So essentially, this will increase participation in psychedelic clinical trials between the VA and HHS. It'll train therapists, nurses, and physicians involved in psychedelic-assisted therapies. It'll collect and share data on safety, effectiveness, and costs. It'll share research findings with the FDA to support review of successful therapies, and it will develop educational materials for veterans and patients if the new treatments receive approval. According to the VA, the department is currently participating in 20 active clinical trials focused on psychedelic therapies for mental health conditions that are supported by more than $23 million in external funding. While the announcement makes a significant expansion of federal cooperation, officials emphasized that psychedelic-assisted therapies remain experimental and will not become part of routine VA care unless they receive FDA approval. A scientific discovery alone is not enough. When the FDA provides a new therapy, patients should not have to wait for years for the healthcare system to catch up. That's why we're acting now, Kennedy said. This agreement begins preparing the VA today for developing clinical guidance, training providers, and establishing treatment protocols so veterans can benefit without unnecessary delay. After the signing ceremony, Military.com was the only news organization invited to question both cabinet secretaries, providing additional insight into how the administration plans to move forward with psychedelic-assisted therapies from research into patient care. So this is going to be really great. I think that anybody who has had experience with psychedelics knows that there is a fine line between partying and using it for healing. There are a lot of people out there who have independently used these on their own and have developed some really profound revelations as a result. So I think that this is going to be very, very good going forward. And right now, essentially, the VA, the only treatments that they have to offer basically are talk therapy and then SSRIs or antipsychotics. And those just do not work for everybody. So anything we can do to help heal people from the trauma that they've experienced going through the terrors of war, I think this is going to be a great thing. All right. Now, E. Jean Carroll is now $5.62 million richer. Earlier today, she received that payout from her lawyers for her bullshit verdict that she received from Judge Lewis Kaplan, $5 million plus interest. The Supreme Court rejected President Trump's bid to toss this case out. And Judge Kaplan mentored E. Jean Carroll's attorney, Roberta Kaplan. They are not related, but they did work together previously, and so it's not surprising that she was there to represent. This is bullshit. And it's really too bad that E. Jean Carroll has received this payout. She is an ugly bitch, and that is my opinion. I don't believe that President Trump ever laid a hand on her. All right, now we have a new announcement from the DOJ's anti-fraud unit. They have announced that they have exposed a whopping $1 billion in trade and customs fraud. This is a type of fraud that I never considered as having any sort of an impact. I didn't even know it possibly existed. Let's go ahead and listen to Colin McDonald as he lays it out.
Today, alongside...
This is in mono, just so you guys know. You're only going to hear it in one of your ears.
The Department of Homeland Security and other federal partners, we are announcing an extraordinary enforcement milestone in a new frontier of fraud enforcement. That is trade and customs fraud. In less than 1 year since its launch, the Trade Fraud Task Force, which is now a permanent force within our fraud division, has officially surpassed $1 billion in criminal and civil recoveries, penalties, forfeitures, and charged losses.
Now, if you're listening in mono, you might hear it in both, but I'm only getting it in my left ear.
For too long, bad actors seeking to exploit the American economy have decided that ignoring and violating U.S. customs laws is a business risk worth taking. Those days are over. Trade fraud schemes impose severe financial consequences to the United States, depriving the country of billions of dollars every year. These fraud schemes threaten our national and economic security, steal from taxpayers, undermine American businesses, fund foreign adversaries, introduce hazardous goods into our markets, and exploit modern-day slavery. The Fraud Division and the Trade Fraud Task Force are laser-focused on these schemes and will continue to bring the weight of the department to bring bad actors to justice. This milestone was only possible because of an unprecedented whole-of-government coalition.
So this trade fraud scheme division just started, and they've already found $1 billion. I mean, I think it's safe to say that the U.S. is losing a lot of money as a result of this. This is undeniably a good thing that they are going at this so hard. Before we continue, you guys have probably noticed that Rumble is growing fast. They are not slowing down. They are building a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. And now you've got access to Rumble Premium. It's an easy way to upgrade your experience. With Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform. There's no pre-rolls or interruptions, just the content that you came for. Plus, Premium members unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scenes drops, and even more from your favorite creators. I play video games a couple of times a month. I'm going to be playing this upcoming Sunday. Right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription, and to take advantage of it, you just go to rumble.com/premium and use the promo code STUDIO at checkout. Once again, that's rumble.com/premium with the promo code STUDIO, and you'll see no more of those ads, more freedom, and more content that you actually came for. That's the deal. Thank you very much to Rumble, and thank you very much to ZBM, who says, Cary Grant, a.k.a. Archibald Leach, was on psychedelics a lot while filming and was even psychedelic therapy fan from what I remember. You won't watch any of his films the same way again knowing this. Yes, I think it was Principal Enigma who mentioned it a couple of weeks back. Very, very cool. All right. Also, Pete Hegseth has announced a new task force in coordination with the Pentagon and the DOJ so that they can identify and prosecute leakers. I'm wondering if this is going to have an impact on the leaks that we just got coming out from the White House speech that President Trump is going to be giving on Thursday. So War Secretary Pete Hegseth announced this new task force to not only identify leakers, but most importantly, to prosecute them. This is something I'm kind of shocked that they didn't have before. It's a big problem, and it's been coming up repeatedly in the Trump administration. And if they don't go after these people and put them in jail, then it's just going to continue. You've got way too many people in Washington who think that the administration isn't doing what they should be doing. They're activists, and so they use this as a tactic to try to stymie the efforts of the administration, frustrate, disrupt the plans of the administration. And they need to know that if they do this, they're going to end up in jail. So Hegseth put out, I believe, like a 4-minute video. We're not going to go ahead and listen to the whole thing, but I believe that this is a short segment from it.
Leaks pose effective immediately. I have delegated tasking authority to the War Department's Office of General Counsel, empowering OGC to request and receive all information, records, and support across the department concerning media leak investigations. All department components and personnel will prioritize these requests, and any taskings issued by OGC under this authority must receive a full and complete response within 48 hours of issuance. Leaked information risks lives. These new tools and processes will greatly assist us in protecting our joint force. The security of our nation cannot be a bargaining chip for those who seek momentary headlines. Access to confidential and secret information is a sacred trust, and those who betray that trust will be met with the full force of the law.
Boom.
Again, I want to thank Acting Attorney General Blanche and our federal law enforcement partners for working with us on these investigations to protect and safeguard America's national security.
I hope that means that they've got a couple of people in mind already. Principal Enigma says, as somebody who was held hostage by the Moroccan government while I served as a CB in 1972 to 1974, PTSD is a bitch. It affects me mostly through ADHD and depression. JFK Jr. has hit a home run. Psilocybin would definitely be included among them. Surtur says Cary Grant was definitely tripping in arsenic and old lace. All right. Now, a couple of regional things. Paramount is considering leaving the state of California because Paramount is attempting to merge with another studio, and that is Warner Brothers, the studio that owns HBO and all of that IP. They're also one of the oldest studios in Hollywood, and if they pull out of California collectively, that's hundreds of billions of dollars that California is going to lose out on. It would be quite a statement. Kind of like the Bears leaving Chicago or the Boston Red Sox leaving Boston. David Ellison is the CEO. He is being pressured to move the whole company out of California because California is trying to stop them from taking over Warner Brothers Discovery. That would be a $100 billion deal, and it's supposed to close in the third quarter of this year. But a lot of people are upset about this because Ellison is an ally of President Trump. The California Attorney General, Rob Bonta, who has his own legal problems, led a group of 12 attorney generals in filing a lawsuit challenging the merger, claiming it would lead to higher prices, lower quality, and less content for film and television. It would harm theaters, basic cable distributors, and ultimately audiences on every sofa and movie theater around the country. As a result, he claims Ellison's friends and advisors have been pushing the media executive to consider shifting his business out of the state. I think that's the best thing that they could do because Hollywood is evil and the whole state is basically garbage at this point. I'm sorry for people who live there, but I don't know how else you're going to do it unless you pull your money out of that state. Alternatively, Florida, this is what we're working on. The Attorney General of Florida, James Uthmeier, is working to impeach another judge who acquitted a woman who pled insanity after murdering her baby. Miguel de la O, a Miami-Dade Circuit judge, acquitted Precious Bland after she drowned her 15-month-old child in 2021. She also stabbed her husband and another child. Bland yelled during the incident that Jesus Christ is coming and COVID is going to kill us all. And a police report said the defendant insisted that everyone needed to be baptized and that she was going to baptize everyone in the bathtub. But instead of baptizing her child, the baby was found face down, unresponsive, and the bathtub was filled with bloody water. The husband and 4 children ran out of the residence and called police, and the judge ultimately acquitted Bland on all 3 counts she was facing, including 1 count of manslaughter and 2 counts of attempted murder in the first degree. Even worse, the judge allowed Bland to return home before a future hearing that would decide her treatment options. Attorney General Uthmeier said in an interview that the decision from the judge was unacceptable. In a bench trial where the judge made the decision, not a jury, he allowed a woman off on an insanity defense after she drowned her own baby. I believe we have impeachment provisions in our state constitutions for a reason. The federal government has similar authorities, but we just don't see judges getting impeached in modern times. So I believe this is wrong. We're going to be pushing hard to work with our legislature to hold a number of these judges accountable. I believe they're violating their oath and endangering citizens. And De La O is not the only judge who may be impeached. Uthmeier was also the one who was pushing to remove another judge who had given a similarly terrible decision. I've already had some Florida legislators reach out, excited to work with me on articles of impeachment and hopefully get some of these dangerous people off the bench. We have taken a big interest in judges that we believe are exceeding their authority, abusing discretion, and acting in a way that jeopardizes public safety. We've already called for impeachments in a couple of other judicial cases. That judge in Tallahassee who let a convicted child predator go free, and then he went on to murder a child. A guy where a jury found him guilty of a child sex offense, and then he murdered his 5-year-old stepdaughter. In another instance, there's a case in Miami where a judge let the defendant out on bail, and he shoved rocks in a girl's mouth as she was being raped. So, yeah, we've got a lot of very bad judges who need to be removed, and Florida appears to be the only state where this is happening. Florida also is really good at going after child predators. We just had 7 suspects who traveled to meet minors in Volusia County who have been arrested in Operation Tor pedo or torpedo. From July 9th through 11th, this joint undercover operation targeted individuals using apps and the internet to target, meet, and exploit children. The arrests include some prominent people from the local area, including the head of Volusia Lacrosse, a co-ed youth lacrosse league. Robert James, or Coach Roscoe Reese, 38 of De Leon Springs, was taken into custody Saturday after he traveled to a gas station in Deltona to meet up with a child that he met online. Other arrests were Colton James Gregory, 19 of Eustis, Brandon Pierre Rutledge, 35 of Altamonte Springs, Logan Banks, 32 of Madison, Tennessee, Dion Kendall Jackson, 31 of Daytona Beach, Felix Mendez II, 28 of Port Orange, and Timur Kuzhabezikov, 31 of Orlando. He was here on a tourist visa from Uzbekistan. So their charges are all traveling to meet a minor, using a computer and the internet to service or solicit a minor, and unlawful use of a two-way communication device. I'm going to play you a couple of the clips of these guys getting arrested.
Hands up! Get your hands up! Get up! I'm buckled. I got you. I'm coming. Hold. Face the car. Your hands up.
I love watching pedos get arrested.
Call them out. Open the car door. Keep your hands where I can see them. Keep your hands up. Close the door. Lift the back of your shirt up. Spin around. Spin around.
Spin around, moron.
Walk backwards to me. Yep, I got him. Hands on. Keep coming. Keep coming. Keep coming. All right, Wes, let's go. Clear. Let's get out of here. Yeah. I don't like anything wrong. Okay. I'm going to go over to my car real quick, okay? Come on.
Love seeing this stuff. Keep it up, guys. Continue to arrest these people. Get them off the street. And you know what else I love about Florida? They don't mince with these charges. They go after every single possible charge they can get these people on. Speaking of pedos, Freddie O'Connell, he's the mayor of Nashville. On Friday, he was requested to produce documents in a response to a public records request by the Tennessee Star. Now, he produced some records, but not all of the records that should have been published. Now, he is also claiming attorney-client privilege in his refusal to release additional documents. What Mr. O'Connell did was provide $1.5 million in payments to pro-illegal alien nonprofits. He, of course, is a Democrat. Now, the Tennessee Star is seeking to find his justification for the appropriation of this $1.5 million for the fiscal year of 2027. The nonprofit in question is the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition and the Tennessee Justice for Our Neighbors. The office claimed the remaining responsive records were exempt from disclosure under Tennessee public records because they contain privileged communications between Metro and their attorneys. O'Connell and his office appeared to contend that attorney-client privilege covers the overwhelming majority of records that are asking for production by the Star, namely anything related to the fiscal year 27 application, proposal, funding request, audit, or renewal request that would explain the decision by O'Connell to include appropriations of $735,000 for one organization and $718,000 for another. In addition to the response for these records, the mayor's office provided the Star with only 5 internal emails. All but one of the emails were sent by Metro employees in response to press inquiries from media outlets, which include the Tennessee Star, as well as response to the records request itself. Lacking any information to indicate why nearly $1.5 million was added to the budget for these organizations ostensibly bringing illegal aliens into the area, The response also seems to put Metro in defiance of Tennessee Code annotated TCA 73314B. That code mandates that nonprofits seeking grants from metropolitan governments must provide clerk of the legislative body a statement of the proposed use of the funds and the program that serves the residents of the county and a copy of an annual audit. So once filed, the report will be open for public inspection during regular business hours of the clerk's office. Notably, Metro Clerk Austin Kyle previously told the Star that this statute does not apply to the $1.5 million, which is instead governed by a different statute. So this portion of the law mandates that metropolitan governments publish the names of nonprofits to which they appropriate money. Nothing about this statute appears to invalidate the previous section or imply that funding appropriated by metropolitan governments for nonprofits may comply with one section but not the other. Theoretically, both statutes should apply in this instance. Now, while the clerk, Mr. Kyle, did not provide information about those two organizations and their appropriations as required under one of the statutes, one of the emails that was provided from the Metro Clerk's office appears to reveal that Metro's legal strategy for withholding their information to spend this $1.5 million on pro-illegal alien nonprofits was first communicated by Metro Assistant Director of Law, Laura Fox. They are hiding behind the lawyers. After Kyle asked for clarification in response to a press inquiry by the Tennessee Star, Fox told the Metro Clerk in part, the grant referenced in the email is a direct appropriation in the mayor's budget, and it generally deals with grants approved by resolution of council. She then told Kyle, after council approves the budget reflecting the appropriation, Metro enters into a contract with the nonprofit addressing use of the funds, which is then filed with the clerk. The Metro Council passed an amended version of the budget proposed by Mayor O'Connell last month, effectively rubber stamping the request to just give $1.5 million to these two organizations. Previously appropriated with funding by former President Joe Biden's America Rescue Plan Act in 2022, those two nonprofits' original contract with Metro includes a document from the Vera Institute of Justice that urged American cities to use temporary federal funding to implement permanent programs that provide legal assistance to illegal aliens. So it appears that the city of Nashville is attempting to pay the legal bills of these illegal aliens and keep them in the nation for as long as they can. All right, Alex Bruesewitz is, of course, an advisor to the White House, and he has been in a sparring match on Twitter for some time with former campaign manager for President Trump, Brad Parscale, over his acceptance of Israeli money to essentially propagandize Americans under the guise of providing conservative content and commentary. So when confronted with the FARA registration forms that Brad Parscale and his corporation had filed in response to their acceptance of this Israeli money, he got really offended. And Time Magazine has now published a pretty bombshell report about Brad Parscale. And Brad Parscale and the president have not been on speaking terms for some time. Brad Parscale kind of flamed out a while ago. But Parscale is kind of profiting from the association that he has with the president, while at the same time running these foreign-funded online influence campaigns in the United States of America. Now, intelligence officials speaking with Alex Bruesewitz have told Time that they believe some of these campaigns were actually aimed at undermining the Trump administration. A senior Israeli official speaking with Time said, "We are pissed at Brad Parscale. He was supposed to make things better. We have paid him lots of money, but what did he do with it? Things have only gotten worse." And I think that he's actually correct. I mean, the attitude towards Israel over the last couple of years has not gotten any better. And Alex says, "I've been calling out these foreign influence operations for weeks. Many of these so-called influencers on this platform were insisting that no foreign country was paying for online support. However, this new article in Time confirms that Alex Bruesewitz was right." Now, the thing here is that Israel is not the only country that is doing this. There's a lot of so-called influencers online who are getting checks from foreign governments through intermediaries and the message they are delivering is then tinted by the money they are getting from foreign countries. This is why I always say, I am not receiving any money either through direct means or indirect means from any country, and that includes the U.S. government. But foreign manipulation of American public opinion on social media is real. It's happening from a number of different angles, and foreign money should not be included in our conversations. That includes on the internet with influencers of either political stripe or in Congress. Foreign money should have no place in American political discourse. Now, speaking of Israel, it was also shown this week by Israeli officials that they had cultivated former Iranian President Ahmadinejad as an Israeli intelligence asset. This is vindicating because, as I have shown and said on many different occasions, the Israeli government infiltrated the Iranian government, and I think that there is an argument to be made that the actions taking place in Iran are not simply about an evil Muslim government, but are just as much about Israeli influence in that government. And I think that when you have the influence of a foreign nation like Israel in the Iranian government, all of the crazy things that Iran has done over the years could easily be attributed to Israeli influence. Because as I've said before, Israel benefits when they have an enemy like Iran in the region. It gives them a reason to go to war and to keep sending off as many bombs, and also to suppress their own people and the people that are just in Israel, whether they're Israeli or not. It gives them the excuse to come down hard on anybody wanting to engage in free speech or perhaps show their displeasure with the movements of the Israeli government. Now, as a result of this article being published in the New York Times, the Iranian IRGC have allegedly put Ahmadinejad under house arrest because he's been exposed as an Israeli spy. That's obviously a big problem. If anybody else in the Iranian government is an Israeli spy as well, I would hope that they would want to figure out exactly who those people are so that they can perhaps negotiate in good faith. It makes me wonder how much of the ongoing war in the in the Strait of Hormuz is a result of crazy Iranians or crazy Iranians that are bought and paid for by the IDF and Mossad. We can't know for sure, but we could potentially find out in the future. I also thought it was interesting because the Jerusalem Post had reported several months ago when all of this kicked off that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad had been killed in Israeli airstrikes. Now that he's been exposed as an Israeli spy, I guess we learned that he's not dead after all. All right. I think that's going to do it for us today. Let me go through the final thank yous over here on Pilled. Thank you to Filter Dog, who says, 4th PSYOP group. Okay, so this is a tweet from Alpha. Let's see what he's posted. Oh, wrong button. There we go. Okay. Oh, they are deactivating. Yeah, so the U.S. government, the military is deactivating a whole bunch of these military accounts. So the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act is almost done being used, Alpha says. So 4th PSYOPs Group says, per Army Directive 2016-17, 4th Psychological Operations Group Instagram page and all social media accounts will be archived and deactivated on August 6th. For public information regarding 4th PSYOPs and Army Special Forces, you can visit these other pages. So this is a requirement that many different military accounts are being forced to shut down as a result of it. You know, whether it's an example of Smith-Mundt Modernization Act being curtailed or reversed, I don't know. I haven't seen anything in terms of legislation related to that. In order for that to happen, we would have to have something submitted. And, of course, it would have to be voted on in both the House and the Senate. Let me see. So that was it over there. And that is it over there on Rumble as well. Okay, so just checking to make sure I didn't miss anything on Cash App. And then I'm going to call it a night. And I don't have anything else going on tonight except for, of course, dinner with my lovely wife and getting her a caramello or two. Hopefully, you guys will be able to join me tomorrow at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. I really do appreciate it. Strado, we've been paying attention over here on YouTube. Thank you very much, sir. I do appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody. Oh, you know what? I just realized I have Top Chat on my YouTube chat, so I've been missing like half the stuff people are saying over there. Okay. Well, anyways, thank you for watching on YouTube. Thank you for watching on Getter. Thank you for watching on Twitter, X. Thank you for watching on Pill. Thank you for watching on Rumble. Thank you for being here in general. And please, you guys, hit that like button or the thumbs up or the heart or whatever it might be on your way out. And I hope to see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Until that time, good luck and God bless. And don't worry, I will remember to shut the YouTube stream off today. Sending you guys over to Brad and Abby.
What it is. Now,